Let's do the damn thing.
Oh, you know what time it is. It's time to take it to the Birdland. It's about to go down. Hope y'all ready. Yeah, let's go. Come and roll with me to the Birdland. Friends got to giving you the word, man. Any other BS is absurd, man. Sports talking, they give it to you firsthand. They can talk Terps, they can talk O's. Yeah, they both lit. That's how it goes. Baltimore squad, Ravens and Poe. Better tune in, here gonna show. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS.
It's all about that BS, baby.
What's up, BSers?
Or beers exploding before we even go on air.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't be a show without some sort of disaster beforehand. What's up, everybody? Fred, Scott, Ryan, Drew, and James in the house tonight. We got a full house, and we got a full show.
A little bit of a late start, but we'll get through it.
I don't even know what to do with my hands right now. We're talking baseball this week. We're talking Terps this week.
Wait, you got me to show up for a baseball show? How did this happen?
This whole stick. We're going to deal with this for the next 5 months. Yuck. All right, man. So Eric DeCosta had his post-season presser and had some interesting takes on things. So we're going to talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
Kind of what do some of these things mean for the future. With the Orioles, Masson's making some big overhaul changes for their Orioles coverage. Some for the good, some not, depending upon where you are on things. So we're talking a little bit about that too.
It's going to be an interesting conversation.
Terps Hoop Squad continue their ups and downs this year. Will they not be a tourney team? On the football side, it's been a mass exodus of coaches, some really good talent players leaving as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we're going to have to talk about this upcoming insufferable as Tom Brady goes to his 10th Super Bowl.
You only say that because you don't like Tom Brady.
I don't like Tom Brady, and I really don't like Patrick Mahomes either. You know what it is about Patrick Mahomes? I don't like his girlfriend. His girlfriend's like super fucking annoying. Have you seen her social media? She is terribly annoying, which makes me not like him even more.
Oh, my God.
I have no idea who his girlfriend is.
She is super annoying. She's all over social media. My boyfriend's the best. And her voice is just like nails on a chalkboard. Nails on a chalkboard.
Her boyfriend signed a $500 million contract.
I guess I'd be that annoyed too if I had $500 million on my finger.
And her boyfriend's got a commercial where he puts ketchup on a steak, and I believe it. He looks
he looks like a ketchup on a steak kind of guy.
Man.
So we got a lot to cover. But before we do, I want to remind you guys, if you've ever been injured at work or in an auto accident and weren't sure who to call, 855-MD-CRASH. The Maryland Personal Injury Attorneys that'll have your back. If you find yourself in that unfortunate situation, just like I have, give our team at MD Crash a call right away. We all know the cost of medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering. It all adds up quickly and will put you in a bad financial place. If you want a team that'll handle your case, big or small, and just give you some peace of mind, save this number now, 855-MD-CRASH. It's 855-632-7274. Be sure to follow them on Facebook for some fun giveaways, including gift cards to some local restaurants. All right, Scott. So before we get into the Ravens and before we get into Eric DeCosta's presser, we do got to give a big shout out, man. It's a big heavenly happy birthday to one of the biggest Ravens fans of all time and an Orioles Hall of Famer.
Yes.
Let's not forget, right? Mo Gabba. Mo Gabba would have been 15 years old today. I don't know if it's appropriate to be doing shots on a 15-year-old's birthday.
It's in his honor.
So we're going to tie this in together. We're going to make this a 2-round, right?
Gotcha.
So we got another guy in the building today who's got a birthday in a couple of days. This guy, where is he? There he is. Happy early.
I canceled my birthdays a couple years ago.
Happy early 33rd birthday. Ryan.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
I'm noticing I still have the sawdust from working on your mouth. Thanks for cutting.
That's what I was going to say, man.
So get the shell and tell out. Sawdust going away.
It's crazy, Ryan and I have only known each other for about 2 years now, and it's crazy. It's like a lifetime full of memories that we have in 2 years that we've been together.
Yeah.
I think last night that it really kind of hit me was like, this dude really is my best friend. Who we're sitting on the ground, sanding a countertop for my mother. Like, who else would do that with me at midnight on a weeknight? It was great. So, Ryan, happy birthday to you. We'll have to get together. I know COVID's all weird. We'll get together one day, hopefully in the future, and all go out together as a...
It'll be Fred's birthday. We'll be almost through it. We're calling it Fred's last ride.
We're going to... I didn't think that was going to get on the air. We're going to go out as a staff. I'll take my employees out for a birthday.
You were putting both of us to work this weekend.
I was, for sure. Both of you guys did great work. So we got some new things to show you with the show as well. But yeah, so again, happy birthday to Mo. Cheers,
Cheers, Ryan.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Kaylee says,
Cheers.
happy birthday, honey, and you two are perfect for each other.
Sounds about right.
You two are.
All right, to Mo for the
right.
Peanut Gallery. Have a good one. Cheers.
Cheers.
Salute.
All right, man. So, like I said, Eric DaCosta had his postseason presser on Monday and had some interesting takes on some things. I know, obviously, right now, like the big hot button topics that all the fans and everybody on social media wants to talk about is the wide receiver position, the number one wide receiver that we need, what's, the current free agent status, who are we bringing back, who are we going to let go. There's a lot to digest in this, and I think Eric had a few interesting things to say.
Yeah, he was talking about a lot of different things. One of the things that he was talking about was the draft picks for this year is not where he wants it to be.
No.
Right? We have 6. We know that we historically want more. The thing that I was taken a little bit aback by was he didn't seem it seems to go back to what we've been, right?
Yeah.
We want more and more draft picks. Last year, or I'm sorry, a few years ago, it paid off. We were able to trade up, give away a few of those draft picks. You trade up, you get Lamar in that situation, and it's worked out for the most part. But this would be the year that you could leverage 1 or 2 picks next year, maybe 1 pick this year, to move up a spot.
Could you?
I think you could.
Think about the big picture with this, right? So we've got a laundry list of free agents that we're going to have to make decisions on. You got Matt Judon, you got Yannick, you've got Bowser, you got McPhee. There's 4 guys, and that's just your outside rushers, right? There's 4 guys. You got Jihad Ward, you got Derek Wolfe, who you just brought in this past year, you got Gus Edwards, and you got Willie Snead. So you got a laundry list of free agents that are pending this year. There's going to be roster turnover, whether we like it or not. We as fans, I get it. We get attached to these guys, and we want to keep everybody if we can. It's unrealistic. You can't have, let's go out and sign a big-name free agent wide receiver, and let's keep all our guys. That's just not realistic. It's never going to happen. And DaCosta, clean this up for us. Like right now, the Ravens are sitting with about $15 to $20 million in cap space right now.
Right.
So $15, $20 million is good compared to the majority of the rest of the league. Like we're probably, I think, somewhere between 12 and 15 as far as cap space, as far as position goes. But really, $15, $20 million in a normal year is nothing cap space.
Oh, no.
Now, they still haven't answered the question, what's the cap number going to be? Is it going to be 175? Is it going to be 180? That's kind of the rumors right now. But either way, that $5 million of flexibility isn't going to make or break, isn't going to be the difference between you signing, a smaller tier wide receiver or signing an Allen Robinson.
But to that point, you're also, the cap, I think this year was, I think we were talking about this before, the cap was like 210 or something like that.
Right. It was 198, I think, going into this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, so it was projected under a normal year to have gotten into 210.
So you're still dropping by at least 10, if not 15 million a year.
Right.
It's definitely going to be something that they're going to have to watch. And look, the guys that you listed off, I honestly think maybe 3.
Right.
I think 3 get
3 is what's gone, or 3 is what come back.
3 is what comes back.
Okay, so that answers my question. That's kind of where I was going with this entire point is I understand your thought process of like, let's go get that guy. Let's package some trade picks. Let's move up and go after a big
Oh, and that guy's going to cost you
he's
going to cost you on the front end on salary.
You can't do that though. You can't lose out on all these free agents and lose out on more draft picks. That's what's made this organization so good, is that they've been able to rebuild through the draft. We all know the shortcomings of the draft with wide receivers and whatnot. That hasn't worked out well for the Ravens. So personally, if they're going to spend money in free agency, I want them to spend money in an area that they don't draft well in, which is wide receiver. I think where they have done good through the draft, offensive linemen. That's always been historically a pretty good area for the Ravens. I mean, you got Ronnie Stanley, you got Orlando Brown, when nobody else would take a chance on Orlando Brown, Marshall Yanda, right? You got all these guys through history who've done good at the offensive line. There's some really good interior offensive linemen that'll be available around the Ravens pick if they stay pat where they're at 27. So I think they build the interior line through the draft is where I would like to see them go personally. And I think if they are going to make a splash and go out and get an Allen Robinson, a Kenny Golladay, one of these big name number one wide receivers, I think you're also going to have to rebuild your pass rush, because you're not going to be able to afford a Yannick. You're not going to be able to afford a Matt Judon. You're not going to be able to afford all those guys. You might be able to keep a Tyus Bowser and get Pernell McPhee back. Pernell McPhee is basically just a stopgap. You know, he might be here for a couple more years, but he's on the back end of his career.
He's not getting this some big deal. Let's be real about that.
Right.
Him. This is what I said. Him, Willie Snead, I think Wolf they're guys that I think have the highest potential to come back, because they're not going to warrant a larger contract. You can get away with a smaller contract on them and still get some decent production out of them.
Right.
So those are the three. Like,
we're bringing Snead back.
I mean, who are you gonna have as your veteran in the wide receiver room?
You're hurting me, but you're right.
Because here's the deal.
Did you see his tweet the other day? And I thought it was pretty telling. Talking about Willie Snead.
No,
his tweet was very simple. But it was cryptic. It was, "You haven't seen the best of me. Only do what they ask of me." So is it a production thing with Willie Snead, or is it just, listen, the Ravens,
opportunities?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's my point with this offense, the way it's designed right now. This is going to go down a whole nother can of worms as far as scheming goes, but it doesn't matter who you bring in here if you're not putting them in position to succeed and giving them the opportunities. I'm not saying Willie Snead's going to go somewhere else and be a number one or even a number two option anywhere. That's not Willie Snead. I think his ceiling is a number 3 wide receiver no matter where he is.
Right. Well, and see the thing that kind of comes in, and I'm going to tie two different pieces in here, because we saw, not only did we see DeCosta's presser this past week, but we also saw Harb's presser last week. The one thing that both of them talked about was, we're all clamoring for that number one.
Yeah.
We're clamoring for Robinson. We're clamoring
Everybody
for somebody.
Sees what's going on in Buffalo right now and wants that to happen here.
Exactly. So, and DeCosta says he's not necessarily looking for that true number one. He thinks that there's
lying.
Are they looking for that? I'm sure.
I don't think he's lying. I think
he's not willing to spend $20 million a year on a wide receiver.
I think Eric DeCosta understands that this was a number 7 overall ranked offense as far as yardage goes. And they were number 32 in passing in the league, but they were still number 7 overall, because not only were they good at running the ball, they were historically good at running the ball, and they have been for the past couple of years. I just don't think what Eric DeCosta is basically trying to say is we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. We don't need to go in and change everything. Yes, are there areas that we need to improve? 100% there's areas that we need to improve. But does that mean go out and spend $20 million a year on an Allen Robinson? As much as that makes sense to us, and as good as that would be here, there's a lot of sacrifices you got to make to get there. And is the risk reward worth it in the way that this offense operates?
Well, and I think so. I referenced Harbs, and I think his statements around this, and Jerry Coleman, obviously, we all know Jerry asking the crazy questions, but he went through and asked a question of Harbs regarding the wide receivers, and basically saying, like, how do you convince a number 1 wide receiver to come here to Baltimore knowing you're not going to get the receptions?
Right.
Well, you know the answer to that, Jerry. I'm not going to even worry about convincing anybody to do something. I'm not going to beg anybody to be here. I'm not a college coach, and I don't have to recruit anybody. You want to win? You want to win? You want to be a part of a great organization, and you want to be a part of a team? and you want to love coming to work every single day, and you're a football player, you love football, you want to play in the AFC North, come here. If you don't, if you're all about stats and numbers and your stat line and how many balls you catch necessarily, and that's all you care for, then there's a lot of other teams you can go play for, and we'll be looking forward to lining up against you.
And I think this has been his consistent message really since they drafted Lamar. Like, they knew when they were drafting Lamar that they were going to build an offense around this RPO and this run-first centric offense. They knew that this is what it was going to be. And I think the progression that we were expecting to see is where the roadblock is in the passing game, right? Because we saw in the MVP year, he threw for 3,200 yards. He threw for like 27 this year. So he's like 500 yards underneath that. And I think that's what everybody's getting caught up on is that, yes, we took a step back with the passing game. I get it. And there's a lot of people already commenting in it that this offense needs to change. And I agree with you. I think the offense does need to change, but it doesn't need to be what they are now to what the Chiefs are. Like, I think people compare too much to what they see on with some of these other teams, and that's just not how we're built, and that's not what our wide receiver core is. Our wide receiver core is not the Chiefs, right? Our wide receiver core is not what the Bills have. We are built to be a run-first team, and it takes a special kind of wide receiver to want to be here knowing that you're not going to get the targets that you would get in Buffalo, knowing that you're not going to get the targets that you would get in Green Bay. That primary objective number one is blocking and making sure that, the run game is successful as much as it is. And I think that's kind of where Harbaugh was going here is all those people out there, all those free agent players, the rumors is nobody's ever actually said this. And even Eric Costa, he even said that like no wide receivers ever told me that they didn't want to come here because of the offense. If that is true, if there's any guys that don't want to be in this offense because of the lack of opportunities, well, then we don't want him here to begin with.
I think we kind of get swept into it, and I think a lot of fans get swept into it, that we look and we say the passing game opens up the run game.
Yeah.
Lamar's agility opens up the run game.
Yeah.
We've seen that.
The Lamar effect has since day one always been a factor.
Right. But what I think was really interesting is that DeCasa, right, he talked about a few different things with it. He talked about, he's been happy with the coaching staff. This team it was designed to throw very little.
James over there, I roll in his eyes.
It was designed to throw little and run first, right? They designed this team this way. But there were some other things that he pointed out that he kind of said these things have to get better and they can ultimately help. Prime example, pass protection. We know we need to get the offensive line, which you talked about.
I got to address this. Travis, you want to win one playoff game and go home, come here. We are a one-win playoff game organization. No, we're not. We've won 2 Super Bowls. Like, we are in the playoff every freaking year. Last year it was we couldn't win a playoff game. This year we won a playoff game. There's one team every year that wins the Super Bowl. There's one team, right? As much as we were on the Bills side this past week because we all love the Bills and we love the story, they just got their asses handed to them. Like, it's one team that wins. And the damn Chiefs right now are everybody's kryptonite. Lamar said it. I think every team feels that same way. Everybody right now is trying to figure out a way to beat the Chiefs.
Well, here's the thing I'm going to tell you. The Chiefs struck iron at the right time, right? Because I tell you what, not this coming year, but the following year, let's see how the Chiefs can stack up. Because you're going to have, I think Kelsey's contract is up at that point. Tyreek Hill's contract is coming up at that point. I believe McCole Hardman will probably be right there at the same time. Right? Plus the running back situation. All of these things, it's gonna hit them like a ton of bricks too. And if these guys keep playing, great. If they win, hopefully they don't. If they win 3 straight championships, but can't compete the 4th year, great. Now you're right back to square one.
Go ahead, James.
Real quick, we're just spoiled in Baltimore.
100% we are.
There'll be guys like in Houston would love to have a playoff game, or Arizona to go back. But what I'm trying to say is this year we need to step back, pump the brakes, rebuild. We need our offensive line to be there before we spend $20 million on a wide receiver. Mm-hmm. So this year I don't think we're going to do much. I think we're going to just sit back, see what our draft is, but we need an offensive line first before we start getting that $20 million wide receiver in here.
I 100% agree with you, and I think that was something that Eric DeCosta was also alluding to, and John Harbaugh, both of them in their pressers, that it starts with pass protection. Like, you can put all the receivers out there that you want. This offensive line, having that injury to Ronnie Stanley, and then losing, obviously, your all-pro, all-world right guard in Marshall Yanda, were playing a huge effect this year.
And the other thing is like, it's funny because when we had Matt Skur on the show, you had anxiety when I wanted to ask him about the penalties, right, from out of that offensive line 2 years ago, and they definitely cleaned it up in 2019, but here again in 2020, we're right back to square one. We have got to reduce the penalties on offense. The delay of game penalties, the time and clock management, that's inexcusable.
I agree with that to an extent, but another thing that this team is also built to do is to control time of possession, right? Because they're not an offense that can typically go down the field and strike quickly. So they try to limit the opportunities of other teams and how many times they're on the field. So I think as much as we get frustrated because we see them lining up with 10 seconds to go, they run it down to about 2 or 3 seconds left on the clock, if that, and then they hike the ball. We see that and we're like, God, why can't you guys get up on the line faster? I think part of that is by design.
But you're not allowing Lamar time to read the defense.
I agree with that.
Because how many times, I know feel like countless times, and you guys can chime in here if you agree, I feel like I've seen countless times where Lamar is like, he's throwing his hands up like, get the play call into me, guys. Come on, feed me.
Right.
And he's wanting to go and keep the pace going because he sees the rhythm. He's got them on their heels. If you give them a chance to go up there, but you don't give him a chance to read that defense, that's a problem.
Right. No, I definitely agree with that for sure. But listen, they got, like I said, they got a lot of free agents that they got to make decisions on. Another thing that he hit on too was Lamar, and he talked about when, the question came up as to when's the right time to sign Lamar. Are they going to have discussions with Lamar? And he did say in the next 10 days that he's going to have a conversation with Lamar. So that will open the door to potentially signing him to an extension. And he talked about some of the other guys, some of the other young, youthful talent that they've got. You've got Mark Andrews, who's arguably one of the best tight ends in the league right now. You got Orlando Brown Jr., who just proved his versatility, being able to line up at right or left tackle. And there's a lot of guys a lot of teams that are going to desire him. So I think part of it is just, you can't keep all these guys. When you're talking, you've got $15, $20 million in space right now, and you're talking about extending your franchise quarterback who's only counting $3 million against the cap right now, mind you. You're talking about extending him to probably a $35, $40 million deal a year. That's going to eat up a ton of cap. There's a lot of decisions that they have to make, and they can't handicap themselves with one player.
Well, it's funny you say that because what are they doing? We saw them make a decision this week to break up the wolf pack.
Yeah, this one to me, it doesn't come down to money. The Ravens made a decision, if you haven't heard already, to part ways with 11-year vet long snapper Morgan Cox. He's been with the team since 2012, since the last Super Bowl we had.
I'll be honest, unless it comes out that he asked, or he said, "Hey guys, this is my last year," which I don't feel is the case. I cannot find a reasonable explanation. One bad snap.
No, it had nothing to do with snaps. It had nothing to do with performance. The writing was on the wall with this early in the season, and I kind of saw this coming because if you remember this year with all the COVID stuff, they were able to protect players on the practice squad, remember? And during all that time, they kept protecting a long snapper. And we had a discussion at the very beginning of the year, like, why the hell are they protecting a long snapper when they've got Morgan Cox here? And this is why. It's because Morgan Cox is, 34 years old now. This young snapper that they have is I think, 28, I believe, at the time.
I think that's
26 or 28. So he's like 6 to 8 years younger than Morgan Cox. That's all that this is about. A youthful movement. It's a hard decision. You don't ever want to get rid of somebody like this. And this isn't just a guy that's got, been here for a long time. He's been an all-pro snapper as well.
Where does he come from?
Who? Oh, he came from the XFL. You're right.
Another lineman from the XFL.
There's just nothing better than a young snapper.
I said that and I heard that at the same time. So we're talking about Nick Moore. Nick Moore is the long snapper who's been on the practice squad that they've been protecting this entire year, all for this reason, so that they could keep him. Because honestly, if the Ravens wanted to bring Morgan Cox back, they would have lost out on this guy. He would have ended up signing a deal somewhere else. Like, if the Ravens are ready to move on from Morgan Cox, they know what they have in this guy.
So that begs the question, right? We saw what they were able to grab in Kari Vedvik, right? And I know that he hasn't done the great, but I also think he also would have done better here because he would have had the greatest kicker of all time in his ear and helping him out. But is Sam Cook next?
I don't know. I mean, Sam Cook at this point, he's 38 years old. I don't think he's got much left in the tank with the Ravens. I think he might have another year or two left. So the Ravens are going to have to find his replacement at some point. I don't know. I mean, you bring up Vedvik. Are you saying trading Sam Cook to try to get?
No, I'm not saying that. What my point is like we went and got Kari Vedvik. It worked out for him in that sense, and he did okay while he's here. We were impressed by what he was able to do.
Right.
So I think that's what I'm looking at and saying, okay, is Sam Cook next? Is this a guy? Is Sam Cook essentially replaceable? Right. It's the joke.
Sam Cook isn't replaceable. I mean, he's been a multi-time Pro Bowler. He's one of the best. I'd say he's been a top 5 punter, if not higher than that, his entire career. So is that replaceable? It's like saying, is Matt Stover replaceable? You can't. It takes a while for you to find a diamond in the rough. We lucked out with Justin Tucker.
But remember, Cox is the same guy that he's always snapping to Cook, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to let Cox go, now Cook and whoever this other new snapper are going to have to get on the same page. And I understand like it's just a snap, but there's a chemistry involved there. That's why it was the Wolfpack. And that's why I question, is Cook next? Because I think in the next year or two, we see them make a move and go get a punter. Maybe it's a guy that's
what I was saying.
Maybe it's a guy this offseason that after the draft, maybe they sign an undrafted guy.
Yeah,
that's what Kari was.
I mean, these guys have been together, like I said, since 2012. They've been the best of friends. So I don't know if this is enough for Sam Cook to be like, you know what, I'll play out one more year and then I'm done. He may bow out gracefully himself. It might not be a decision that the Ravens have to make. But either way, I think he's here for another year or two before the Ravens
I think minimum of a year for him.
Right. All right, well, the other guy that we got to talk about, because Jamison Hensley reported this out on social media, and then Matt Judon went on social media and kind of denied the whole thing, but reportedly, Matt Judon had been asking for $20 million annually.
His reaction was just too perfect.
It was hilarious.
I ain't talked to him. My agent ain't talked to him, but $20 million? You got my attention. like that was. I was just the way that was he on a boat, by the way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It looked like
which by
for $20 million.
which mind you, on that same boat were Brandon Williams and Mark Ingram. And Brandon Williams at 330 pounds is doing backflips off of the boat into the water.
He's an agile motherfucker.
Oh yeah, he was the one that was coming in on draft day doing handstands and walking on his hands on the football field. It was freaking great. But yeah, no. So regardless if he was asking for it, if he's not asking for it, whatever, we got to talk about it, right? Matt Judon, $20 million a year. Is it worth it or not?
Well, what's his franchise tag number this year? What was it? Do you remember?
No, it's somewhere between
either one of them.
17 and 19.
17 or 18 or something like that.
Between 17 and 19.
I don't know why the 18.4 is like sticking in my head. I don't know why, but no. So like I don't. After what we've seen and everybody else that we have on that line, I think the better play is the youth in Yannick, right? While we didn't see the quote production out of Yannick, did the increase there at the end of the season from Matt Judon and some of the sacks that we're seeing him get, is that a result of Yannick being opposite of him and then the offensive line's going, which side do we fucking protect? Right? Like which way do we go if you have it? Maybe you can get somebody in the draft to replace Judon and develop and work opposite Yannick. I think Yannick is the better play. If you're going to pay somebody or you're going to franchise tag him, I think he's the way to go. Let Matt Judon walk, especially if he's looking for $20 million. It's not worth it. I'm not even sure it's worth 16 right now.
I agree with you that Matt Judon's not worth it, but I also don't think Yannick's worth it. I don't think either one of these guys are worth it. I think both of these guys are going to get outpriced. Somebody, the Jets, the Jaguars, who have $1 billion in cap space, are going to overpay for these guys.
You mean the Baltimore Jets?
Yeah, right. Somebody's going to overpay for guys like this, and then they're good. They're the type of people that are going to go. Like, they're both young players. So are they chasing a ring this early? No, they're chasing that big payday, both of them, because they haven't had that big payday yet. So I don't think a ring is as important to these guys as money is at this stage in their career.
The only thing I'm going to say is, like, the whole thing with Yannick, people were making it about money, but he also wanted to get out of Jacksonville.
He didn't want to be in Jacksonville.
Right,
it had
which
nothing
is my
to do
point.
with money.
But that's somebody whose mentality is, I don't want to be in a situation that I don't feel comfortable, that I'm not like,
and he's
it's not,
going
doesn't
to have
feel competitive.
He's going to have options. That's my point.
Right.
Will he go back to Jacksonville? No, he's not going to go down to Jacksonville, even though they've overhauled everybody down there.
He wants to be with a team. He's not going to go to a Jets. I don't think he's going to sign with the Jets.
Why wouldn't he?
Not competitive right now.
Are they? I mean, one trade with Deshaun Watson and they're competitive. It's a hell of a backup. Just saying.
Shut up.
Don't get me started over here.
No, but the Jets.
Apparently you
Listen,
didn't watch Speak for Yourself today.
Jets can turn things around. And again, if a team like the Jets is offering this guy $3, $4, $5 million more annually a year, they're going to take it. They're going to. And the Ravens just aren't in a position to get in a bidding war like that. The Ravens right now are trying to be those bargain shoppers, those Ali shoppers, those Walmart shoppers. They're trying to find the best deals that they can possibly do because they got to make every dollar spread out and count.
But if a guy is like, we're $3 million difference, the Ravens can very easily turn around and say, hey, you can go there and potentially not be competitive, or you can come here and know that you were here last year. We were competitive. We are looking to be competitive again next year and make it. We took the step this year. We want to take the next step next year or beyond.
So Garnett, I agree with you, man. He says we're screwed when it comes to pass rush. We're screwed in any position that's going to cost top dollar that we want to improve on. The areas that we want to improve on are interior offensive line, wide receiver, and pass rush. But to get the kind of talent that we want as fans to see that big marked improvement are going to price us out of the market. We just don't have the cap space to spend. Now, if the goal is, if Eric DeCosta is spinning the wheels and he says, you know what, I'm not going to leave Greg Roman with any excuses. I'm going out and getting him a number one receiver. You got to rob Peter to pay Paul somewhere, and it's going to be pass rush. Yes, there's some contracts that they can rework to free up some space, and all that's fine, but they've got so many other contracts that they got to use that money on that if they're going to go out and spend $20 million annually on somebody like a Allen Robinson or a wide receiver, you're not going to see them bring back Yannick. You're not going to see them bring back Matt Judon. You might see them bring back Pernell McPhee and Tyus Bowser. They're going to have to hit their home runs, their starters, high up in the draft. They're going to have to be efficient in this draft. This is where things start to get tough for the Ravens with this transition.
Have we, with the contracts that we've put on defense, have we unintentionally put ourselves in this situation from an offensive standpoint?
Well, they knew this was done by design because they drafted so well on the offensive side that they were like
but you drafted so well that you can't do that one piece away situation.
They built this roster this way that where contracts will expire and they're going to have to make the decision. Talking about on the defensive side, these big contracts are going to expire, and the Ravens are going to have to make a decision: do they extend those guys and keep the defense built to where it is, or do they now transition that money over to the offensive side where they have drafted well and they've got to pay these guys?
But
they've had 2 years of a sample size right now with this defense under the current money structure.
Right.
And both years the defense has done great, but both years they've gone out of the playoffs in the first and second round. So now it's let's change the philosophy. Let's shift the money from one side to the other side and see where that gets us. This whole balance on both sides doesn't work with the way they're set up.
To your point, you got to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to rob. That's where you're, and I think that's what you're alluding to is you're going to do it on defense. And what my question was
that's what I've been saying.
Right. But what my question was did we unintentionally put ourselves in this situation because we keep putting eggs in this basket, putting this eggs in this basket?
Unintentionally, no. This was intentional.
Your
intentions were, I'm going to spend a shit ton of money on the defensive side of the ball, and I'm going to hopefully draft really well on the offensive side of the ball. They won on both sides of that, but it hasn't gotten very far.
Without that number one, did you? Well, you don't know that, and that's what my point is. You could have been one piece away from this year.
That brings me back. We let Eric DaCosta off the hook a little bit here. He wants to talk about how the number one wide receiver is not what we're looking for. We're a run-first team. We need a wide receiver that can block. Well, then why did you spend your high-level first-round draft pick on a guy that weighs 110 pounds? When you had DK Metcalf in that draft, when you had A.J. Brown in that draft, when you had big-body wide receivers, even if they weren't going to be the elite wide receiver option, even if somebody thought they weren't going to be, they were still better at what you're saying you wanted to do. They're still better at the blocking side. There's still a body that can high point the ball in the end zone. You drafted a tiny little fast guy.
They were trying
just
to
like
do
the
a
Chiefs.
They
wanted
exactly.
to be the Chiefs.
They wanted to be the Chiefs. Part of that is that they wanted to be the Chiefs. The other part of that was they talked to their future franchise quarterback. Their franchise quarterback said, "Go get this guy."
There's that, but you can't prove that you wanted to be the Chiefs and now go, "We never wanted to be the Chiefs. We're doing it our own way."
No,
you can't. We can't let
but
him off
he also talked about the wide receivers, and he also talked about Hollywood specifically and the improvements that he made over the last 8 weeks of the year, which we've all talked about. He looked a lot better the last 8 weeks of the season. He looked more like the player that we drafted. But I don't think anybody, even Eric DaCosta, thought when they were drafting him that he was going to be that true X receiver outside, that he was going to have the body control. Nobody with two eyes would have thought that that's the kind of body that he would be.
But that's where
Miles
he was
Boykin.
I was gonna say
Miles Boykin was supposed to be that guy, and he hasn't been able to be that guy. They were supposed to complement each other.
But he
had
was
that
drafted-
big body outside.
I was to say, I get exactly where he's going with this. It's the fact that you drafted him. You drafted him that high. You thought it was immediate long-term
You drafted him that
impact
DJ Moore
in that
pick.
situation.
You thought you were getting a guy that was small, that could get the ball out in space and be able to make plays just like Tyreek Hill does. He isn't that guy. He's too fragile of a guy. He's not Tyreek Hill. He might look like him in stature, but Tyreek Hill is a much more physical, much more aggressive wide receiver than Hollywood. So I think he had the expectation of a Tyreek Hill, which Tyreek Hill can be a number one type receiver.
Go ahead, Joe.
He should be Deshaun. He should be Deshaun Jackson, but it hasn't shown up yet.
Not yet. Not yet. Like I said, he looked a lot better the second half of the year. And listen, I'm not denying that they missed with Hollywood Brown. He was the number one wide receiver taken in that draft. The Ravens had the cream of the crop to pick whatever wide receiver they went with, and they went with him. They talked to their franchise quarterback about that. Obviously, they've got the local ties and all that stuff. They played against each other at a young age and all that stuff. So there was probably some of that was in it. But I think for the Ravens to go out and get that number one wide receiver that we all want and that we're all talking about is going to handicap this team in many other areas. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. You can't have it all. As much as we want it, you can't have it all.
Right, but that's what I was kind of getting at was we do this flip-flop. When we're not paying for defense, we're drafting on offense. Or I'm sorry, when we're paying for defense, we're drafting on offense. When we're paying for offense, we're drafting on defense.
No, because the Ravens have always drafted best player available. That's always been their MO. Have they drafted a couple of players based on need? Sure. But their MO going into a draft has always been best player available. That's why they take players out of position that they don't necessarily need, but they get value because, like defensive line, we were loaded at defensive line this year. We had guys on practice squad and guys that wouldn't see the field that could have been fighting for some serious playing time on other rosters because it was great value. Justin Madubuike was down there in the third round, should have never been there, and the Ravens took him because they didn't necessarily need him. Did they need J.K. Dobbins going into this year? No, but he fell to him and they took him. That's always been the Ravens' MO is draft best player available.
Right. I get what you're saying. My whole point was you're talking about robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's a cyclical business, but at some point there's a balance that has to come out of it in order to consistently find that championship. You have to have it. The Chiefs are winning with an A offense and a B-C defense.
Yeah, because
right?
they have an all-world player, and he makes all the difference in the world. I'm telling you, if you put another quarterback in that system, they're not as successful as they are. They're not.
Kelsey's also an all-world talent.
100% he is. Yeah. But Kelsey isn't what he is with somebody else throwing him the ball. I think that they complement each other well. I'm not saying Kelsey still wouldn't be a top flight tight end, but he's putting up wide receiver numbers consistently every year.
I'm going to play devil's advocate on the statement that you just made.
Just my opinion.
I disagree with you in that statement that if you put another quarterback in that situation, it's not there. I'm
not saying they can't win. They've proven they've been able to win in the past. But are they winning at the level that they're winning at now? No.
Hold on. Look at how far Josh Allen got with just Stephon Diggs. Can you imagine if he had Kelsey, Hill, and that run and the run game that they have?
Wasn't Kelsey like all-world player the year before Mahomes took over?
He was a very good tight end. That's what I'm saying.
Top 3.
He's a very good tight end. I'm not trying to take that away from him. His game steps up a whole nother level because of Patrick Mahomes. Everybody's game steps up a whole nother level.
It better at $500 million.
We can't forget, the wild card in all this. Eric Bieniemy and
you mean
Andy Reid.
You mean our new offensive coordinator? Because he's getting blown by for everything. Right. Pick up the phone.
All right, so let's shift gears because speaking of coordinators and speaking of changes. There were some changes this week that take place as the Ravens lose some guys and gain some guys.
Yeah, we'll kind of run down this quick. There was a couple of changes. Inside linebacker coach Mike McDonald, he is leaving to go to the University of Michigan as their new defensive coordinator. I'm sure Ryan's a big fan of that. But I guess the big news here with this was
the head scratcher.
His replacement was a Ryan, but it was Rob Ryan. We had Rex Ryan for years. We got his ugly brother now in Rob Ryan, the greasy-haired one. This guy, listen, he's not
the flowing locks.
None of these hires to me, and we'll go down them, none of these hires to me are sexy hires. None of these guys get me excited. Rob Ryan hasn't had the most successful career wherever he's been, but Rob Ryan did work with Wink Martindale in his days down in Oakland with the Raiders. So I guess there's the familiarity piece there. And again,
he's worked with the Saints before as well, which they're not.
No, I'm saying
as defense,
the connection between Wink and Rob Ryan. He's an inside linebacker coach, so he's not calling the defensive plays. So we'll see how that translates. I don't like it personally. You just went out and drafted your first round pick last year in Patrick Queen, who I think he's got a lot of potential, but he's still raw. He needs a lot of work. I don't know if Rob Ryan is the guy to guide him or to lead him. That's just my opinion.
Rob Ryan is everything that's wrong with the NFL, in my opinion. I don't know how we keep recycling these same 6 coaches across the league. His brother was pretty good. He's never been good. I don't know why he has another job. I don't know why we can't get new blood. I don't know why it's a boys' club.
Say it.
There's racism, but there's also worse than that.
He's white and his last name is Ryan. It's a recyclical.
But it's so much worse than that. There is absolute racism, but there's also boys' clubs. It's nothing but families. It's the Mannings and the Ryans.
That's what I'm saying. His last name's Ryan.
And it's it's the same 8 people getting rich. Let somebody with talent come in. Right. What are we doing?
I know. I 100% agree with you. And that was kind of my feelings on this whole entire hire. And he hasn't coached in a couple years. I mean, he was in Washington back a couple years ago in 2019.
Probably some gambling debt. He called one of his billionaire buddies and said, "I need a job again."
Don't worry. These whole coaches are going to be gone next year anyways.
Yeah.
If it's anything like the Terps, we will recycle them year in, year out.
So Ryan was one of the guys that was also let go or leaves for a defensive coordinator job. Joe Cullen. Yeah. He gets the job in Jacksonville down there. And then they pull in Anthony Weaver.
Yeah,
name sounds familiar.
Yeah, Weaver used to be a
decent
Raven.
hire.
Yeah, I thought this was a decent hire. I mean, granted, anybody that comes from the Texans on the defensive side of the ball, there's a lot of question marks with because they did not look very good. And you had a guy by the name of J.J. Watt on your defensive line. They still didn't look very good.
J.J. Watt said a lot of nice things about him.
So but the only thing he didn't say in there was that he was a great coach. He said he's a great guy, great friend. He's got a couple snaps in him. But he didn't say anything about him being a great coach. I noticed that. But that Weaver, listen, he's former Raven. He played here from 02 to 05, I think. He'll be the run game coordinator from the defensive side, the D-line coach. Again, with the Texans in 2020 as the defensive coordinator. Didn't go well.
No.
DB coach. This was one that I know a lot of people on social media, including myself, were kind of hopeful that we might have a Ravens reunion, that we might see Ed Reed come back here. This was the one spot that we thought, man, if he's ever going to get back into the Ravens organization, the DB coach job's got to open up. He'll get in his feet in the door there, and then maybe he'll become a defensive coordinator. But honestly,
He's going to
He's
die
comfortable
rich
in Miami.
everywhere, as much as I respect Ed Reed, he's had a couple opportunities as a coach in the NFL, and they haven't shaken out for whatever reason. There's a lot of things that go on behind closed doors that we're not privy to, but something hasn't worked out in his couple of stops. I know he went down to Miami and he was doing some stuff at the University of Miami down there too. He put a tweet out that he was looking for a job both collegiately or the NFL, but he's looking more for a coordinator job, and I just don't think he's qualified yet. And it's not because of his playing days resume. There's a lot of guys that have great playing days resumes. It doesn't mean that they're going to be good coaches.
I think he could step in a defensive assistant defensive coordinator, assistant defensive head coach, or assistant defensive coach.
He needs to have good tutelage, but John Harbaugh will never have him here because him and Ed Reed just did not get along.
The thing that I think Ed Reed has going towards for him, and I think it's his why I don't think he would mesh with a lot of teams right now, is we talked about his mentality, right? The stories that he told about pick up your towels, right? Those type of things. Those are things that I think he sits there and says, you guys, these kids, and at a collegiate level, I think he's absolutely right. Teach these kids at that level to do that stuff. You put your own towel in there. You don't leave this stuff in there. It's smart. But a lot of teams are getting away from that style hard mentality.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I just think the all-world talent players have really never been like the top coaching candidates. It's those jobbers. It's the ones that put in the hard work and had to learn the perfect technique to do it. When you're all-world natural talent, you don't always know exactly what you're doing. You're just like, I saw the ball and I went and got the ball and nobody can stop me from getting the ball. So you look at like John Elway. John Elway can't pick out a quarterback to save his life. But if you get Ryan Fitzpatrick as a quarterback coach, you should do it. That dude's been putting in work for years, studying, knows everything there is to know about the job. Ryan Fitzpatrick should be a quarterback or offensive coordinator immediately.
Point in case with that, with your point, Josh Allen, we all know that he got Stephon Diggs and there was a big improvement. Part of that improvement was Josh Allen working with Jesse Palmer. Who's Jesse Palmer? Carson Palmer's brother, who sucked as a quarterback in the league, he's a great coach. He's a great quarterback coach.
You don't have to be bad, but you can't be all world. I mean, like Mike Vrabel seems to be a really good coach. He was a good player, but he wasn't like a transcendent talent. Yeah. It was he put in work and knew how to do it.
Our boy Garnett. Hey, this is a great point. Pull that up there, Ryan.
Which one?
Go up a little bit. Garnett. Yep. He said Ryan is the perfect guy to guide Queen. Yep. You have it. You
right
were
up there.
On it.
It's in the face. Let me YouTube.
Let me do it. Jesus. He says Ryan is the perfect guy to guide Queen because he's going to keep it 100 with that young man, which I say is needed. And you know what? That's actually a really good point because some of the stuff I do see with Patrick Queen, and maybe it's me being old and ratchety and being a
Ryan is all those things.
Yeah. I see him on social media and some of the things. I think he's got a good work ethic, but I think that like there's an immaturity level with him. There's like a level of seriousness that's not there, that's lacking, and maybe that's because we have a high bar because of what Ray Lewis did for so long here and the energy that he led with from literally the day he walked onto the football field. There is definitely a level of immaturity with him. So that's a good point. Rob Ryan is a no-nonsense, no bullshit kind of guy. He's not going to take a bunch of crap. So maybe that is a good point with him.
The only thing I would say to that would be like Wink seems to be like this, he's hard on the guys, but he's like this loose, have fun type guy. So I don't know how Rob Ryan's going to mesh with that.
Yeah.
Like because he is that no-nonsense, he doesn't like you. The only time you see a smile on his face is when somebody makes an interception, and that's it. Like you don't see anything else.
Well, we didn't talk about the DB coach, right? We talked about who we wanted but didn't get here. So Jesse Minter, who was the DB coach, is now leaving for Vanderbilt. He's going to take the defensive coordinator job at Vanderbilt. So we're bringing another Texan coach in, another guy with family ties, D'Anton Lynn, son of former Chargers coach Anthony Lynn. He's going to be the assistant DB coach. He's going to work under the passing game coordinator of Chris Hewitt. He's 31 years old, Ryan. This dude's younger than you, and he's a DB coach. 31 years old. That's kind of crazy to me.
Hey, taking down what I've accomplished in life or something? Get out of here. I'm
saw
still
this
working
picture.
on my DB coaching. That's why I got into this Terps podcast. Locke's going to put me on his staff.
I saw his picture. I'm like, was this from like his playing days or whatever? Like he looked super young. I'm like, no, he's 31 years old with a DB job. That's crazy.
I mean, Anthony
DB
Lynn's
coach
only
job.
like 55 or 60, so
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
I know, it makes sense. That's for
Locks,
sure.
if you want to move on from like athletic trainers since they kind of failed you and cost you $3.5 million, I'll be your nurse all day. We can replace them. Let's go.
Yeah. Some other two quick question marks that are kind of floating out there. Sterling Lucas, who's the Ravens defensive assistant for the past 5 seasons and the assistant defensive line coach in 2020. There's expectations he's going to follow Joe Cullen to Jacksonville. You kind of anticipate in situations like that. These guys get to know each other, to know each other's scheming, how they operate. So it makes sense. You always pull somebody in with you.
Go ahead. I was going to say the other option that kind of scared me a little bit is if we're going to replace at any point mid-season Greg Roman with an internal candidate, I think the right guy to go after would be James Urban, right? The guy
Right,
who
we
was
talked about that
literally in Lamar Jackson's ear. I think he's a talented guy that just hasn't been given the opportunity yet. Well, he ended up getting an interview with the Lions for the OC job. So nothing has been announced officially yet. They haven't made a decision yet, but we could see James Urban moving on as well, which to me, I think that would kind of suck.
Yeah. I know that you were also talking that Flacco was in the news again.
Flacco was in the news. Tom Flacco. Brother of Joe. It's the guy that I was talking about last year who had a pretty damn good career up at the University of Towson. He's a vast different quarterback than his brother. Shorter, more athletic. He's more of a mobile quarterback. And
Smiles.
Smiles a little bit. Actually has a personality. No, he was a very good quarterback at the University of Towson. I wonder if somebody in the NFL is actually going to give him a shot. But I thought just based on his play and his body type, I thought he was a good CFL candidate. Well, he does. He ends up getting an opportunity, signed with the Saskatchewan Roughriders in the CFL. He kind of reminds me a little bit of a Doug Flutie, like his style of play, his size and all that. I'm not saying he's going to go up there and dominate the world in CFL like Doug Flutie did. But, well wishes to Tom Flacco. Cool to see him land a professional job, even if it is in Canada. Ryan with his tech debut and our new social media
Some of you
shout-out
may have
stinger.
seen your names in my work there.
That's right.
Welcome to the
If you're
Birdland
still
BS Hall of
tuned
Fame.
if you're still tuned in, you may have made an appearance there in our new stinger. All right, Ryan, it's time for a social media shout-out. Who's out there commenting anything good that everybody's bringing up?
All right, we got Garnett West, James, Foxes 23, Big Play Dave, Travis Whitfield, Kaylee, Jamal Caldwell, Chuck, Marlon Suggs, Jesse Wilkinson, Jonathan Carrington, Craig Zero, Nick Short, Rommel Bryant, Joe Carlozo, Alex DeVoe. And if you've made it to the one name fan, you're doing well. I know you, and we don't have to identify you with last names.
Love it.
Any good comments out there? I know we've worked in a few, but
I know that Chuck was talking. It was a good point, and it brings back to we do have receivers we can build around. Is that Diggs and Allen had Diggs, but he also had Cole Beasley. So that was a big help. They were a lot better
here's the
receivers
thing.
on the field.
Hollywood Brown can be
He
Cole
can
Beasley.
absolutely be, but so can Prochet, and so can Devin Duvernay.
And that's the thing.
That's
We haven't
my
even
problem.
scratched the surface with those two
My
yet.
problem with keeping Snead is I feel like we have 4 people can do what Snead's supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's why I don't want Snead, and that's why I don't want.
And I
saw Curtis Samuel being brought up. I don't want him either because they're all too similar.
Yeah,
we already have it.
So
Right.
I'll say this. I'll disagree with you that Hollywood Brown could be Cole Beasley. You want to know why? Because Hollywood Brown's afraid to get hit. Cole Beasley was out here
Beasley
playing with a
don't care.
broken fibula the past 3 weeks. of the
Sometimes
season.
Cole Beasley needs to know when to not take
Cole
a hit.
Beasley's
He's
got a
the
little honey
opposite
badger
end.
in him.
Yeah,
Honey badger don't care.
We need somebody in the middle of those two. Maybe not one extreme or the other. Right in the middle of those two. Oh man. All right, so we're not going to talk Super Bowl predictions yet. We got
Not
a
yet.
whole 2 weeks now before we got to, for the Super Bowl. But We got to talk about these games.
Should I say thank you, Tom, at least? Tom, thank you, Tom, for making me a bunch of money.
Yeah.
You made my fantasy football flush this year. Won $300 on this fantasy playoff. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Ryan and I are in the fantasy football league. He is dominating that league. He's definitely going to win. Hopefully, I'll finish in second. I'm like 5 points behind second place right now. We could finish 1 and 2.
150 points behind first place.
That's okay. I still get my money. I still get my cut. I don't care.
You really have run away with
It was nuts.
Yeah.
Jesus.
All right. Well, listen, this didn't go. These 2 games did not go as I hoped. You know, I didn't. As much as like I respect Tom Brady as the player, he is the GOAT. He is the greatest quarterback of all time. I don't care what your argument is. You can bring all these other players. This guy's going to his 10th Super Bowl. He's won 6. He's potentially going to win his 7th Super Bowl.
In 21 years, he's a 50% Super Bowl?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. As much as I respect him, I can't fucking stand him. I don't want to see him win another Super Bowl. I wanted to see Aaron Rodgers. I felt like the season that Aaron Rodgers had, he more than deserved it. But this game, there were some piss poor decisions, some bad decisions made by LaFleur in this game.
Well, did you see today? He took the heat on his defensive coordinator for making that call of playing man coverage instead of zone coverage and letting a ball get deep downfield, which wound up being the game-winning drive.
Go ahead, Drew.
The defensive coordinator in that game up until Tom Brady tried his fucking hardest, it seemed, to give that game away. And that's what happened with Tom all year.
He had, 3 picks in that second half?
And they couldn't do anything on offense. It is what it is because that pass rush was so good. But it was like, the Scotty Miller, that should not fucking happen.
Yeah.
That Tampa Bay defense is playing their ass off.
And they are.
Yeah.
And the pass rush is amazing because if you can get Rodgers rattled and he can't run around and he can't kind of extend
Or refuses
plays.
to run around.
When you got a guy with 3.5 fingers figuring out a way to get in the backfield and cause havoc, you've got a damn good defensive line.
I'm going to start playing with fireworks, see if I can get me a deal.
Apparently, just go out there with a club.
Yeah, maybe that's part of it. You're just giving everybody concussions as you go by.
Last time I checked, if you throw 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, you're going to lose the game.
Yeah. All right.
And that one was straight up in the air, hey.
It was a lob shot.
That was also on third down. They were have to punt anyway. It ended up being a punt.
Then
the 20-yard line.
The other part was when they got behind, they started going for stupid conversions and stuff. I don't know. This game there was a lot of play calls, a lot of coaching decisions in this game, which you normally don't see Matt LaFleur kind of play against himself. You don't see that usually work against him.
I don't think he's. I think he's one of those guys within the next 2 or 3 years. He's fucking gone. When Rodgers is gone, he's gone.
Really,
I don't think
as
he's
good
that
as
good.
as good as this offense was this year, and now that Aaron Rodgers is fully bought into the offensive system, and he's about to win the MVP.
Well, if Love doesn't get off the practice squad, which he was never on the active roster this year, he might be gone.
Well,
that was a really bad draft pick if that doesn't happen.
This game also
That's not on him. It's not on LaFleur.
I guess. Well, it depends how they work it, but it seems like the
There's
brand
no
new
way.
coach.
There's no way you can put the draft of Love, which they were actually talking about on Speak Yourself today. He is not panned out. Everything that they're saying, everything you're hearing out of Green Bay is this kid sucks.
And they traded up to get him and had Rodgers.
Right, exactly.
If you ask me, that's what LaFleur wanted. LaFleur wanted those first
Because they
two
hated
fucking
each
picks.
other. Because Rodgers and LaFleur hated each other.
LaFleur wanted those first 2 picks. He wanted those first 2 picks, and you had fucking Aaron Jones coming off his best goddamn year, and Jamal Williams was a serviceable second guy.
Well,
you went out and you go out and get Jordan Love, and I kind of like the running back.
Dylan's going to work, and they're going to have to
Dylan's
not
work.
pay Jones now, which is great. That's going to save them so much money with Dylan.
Goddamn,
But Love is
you
so
didn't
stupid.
Give your best fucking quarterback any goddamn weapons.
Yes.
You know what's
Rodgers should have got a
interesting?
wide receiver and a running back.
Interesting statement. And we talked about this with the Steelers head coaches a few weeks ago. How long they've had 3 head coaches.
Yeah.
The past 3 quarterbacks for Green Bay,
Bart
all-
Starr,
Brett
Favre.
all 16 years with Green Bay.
That's pretty nuts.
This year was Aaron Rodgers' 16th year.
So he's done.
And now,
Rodgers
after his
said that.
comments,
Only 2 fucking Super Bowls, so what does it matter?
Yeah, well, after his comments, he talked in his post-game press conference. He said, the team has a lot of thinking to do, and so do I. And people are interpreting that. Some people are sitting here going, oh, is he going to retire?
No.
He's not going to retire. He played his best football, honestly, of his career, in my opinion, this past year, and he had the weapons to do it. I think, and he's got that right, and we've seen guys do it. We've seen it happen in the NBA. Now we're seeing that crossover in the NFL. These guys are going to teams going, I'm not going to show up unless you trade me.
Does Aaron Rodgers go to Chicago and beat the Packers?
Let me
next
tell
year?
you. Let me tell you, Aaron Rodgers, it was worse than the quote that he just said. What he said was a lot of people's futures are up in the air, including mine.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he that's not him saying, I'm leaving. That's him saying, well, they just drafted somebody in the first round. They seem to be trying to put me out.
Right.
Seem to be
Well,
trying.
yeah, I think the big thing with him though is you're talking about the Bears. I heard floated out, Indy,
And
right?
he
Could be
hung-
another place that he goes.
What if
He hung-
the Lions are ready to move on
Nah.
from Matt Stafford? What if they bring him down
He
there?
Aaron
hung his
Rodgers-
coach out to dry for that fourth down decision.
Aaron Rodgers goes to San Francisco.
And
I did
San
hear
Francisco
that.
wins the Super Bowl at that
Yeah,
point.
until Aaron Rodgers retires. Every year until he retires. All right, let's talk about the next game, right? So this was the game where I was riding with the Mafia. I was riding with Bill's Mafia, man. Sorry, Chuck. Hopefully you've dried your eyes now and you've gotten over it.
Wait,
'cause,
you say that and you picked the Chiefs for this
yeah,
game last week.
It was like the reverse psychology thing. I
Yeah, he picked the Ravens the week before, too.
I knew the Chiefs were going to win, but I wanted
So you're
Bill's
the
Mafia.
asshole guy that made you're gonna take
Don't
the heat
put
for
the
Chiefs.
shit on me. I had nothing to do with this game. The Bills just didn't show up in this game. They didn't look anything like they looked like against us. They didn't look anything like they looked all year. Stephon Diggs was basically a non-factor in this game. Good, Drew.
They didn't look that good against us.
I'm not saying they look great, but
They won the
Stephon
game.
Diggs had
I don't
over 100
remember.
yards
I
receiving.
get that.
He
None
was
of you guys
a
remember.
non-factor. Yeah.
Did you guys watch both games?
I watched
Yeah.
it the next
Fred
day.
watched it the next day.
No, I'm talking about this week.
This week. Yeah, I watched both
Yeah, I
games,
watched
sure.
with you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Buffalo, they just did not look like anything. Again, Josh Allen led them in rushing. They couldn't get the ball moving through the air.
They were struggling with
Kansas City is just
The
that
Bills
good.
didn't
Ironic-
show up, and they refused to leave. Diggs was standing there watching them celebrate for, 45 minutes?
Oh,
But
yeah.
that's good,
Well, they had.
though. I think that's
McDermott had to
smart.
come get it. Had to come
That's-
get him off the field.
That's motivation. He took that in. He wants to know what that pain feels like so he doesn't feel it again. I
Also,
get
there was
that.
another player on the bench. I don't know who it was, but nobody's paying any attention that he didn't leave either. It's all about
Oh,
Diggs.
there was I just saw something
It
yesterday
was
of who that
Beasley.
was.
His leg was
Yeah, it was-
broken.
Oh,
They forgot about him.
he couldn't get up off the bench.
Oh,
No, but like to
and
your
Diggs
point,
like, I can't carry him.
the other point, Allen was screaming a lot more in this game. Their offensive line was struggling to keep this Kansas City defensive front, which in all reality has barely gotten any pressure on anybody all year long. And
So-
here they are getting all this pressure on Josh Allen all game.
On that defensive line is a guy named Chris Jones. Chris Jones is the defensive line version of Marcus Peters, where like he plays to his level of competition. He plays to like his desire and his energy level. When he's into a game, obviously this was a win or
He
go
was
home,
into
go to
it,
the
yeah.
Super Bowl thing. He can be an absolute dominating player, like an Aaron Donald type player. He can be a physical guy. And things got chippy in this game. Like towards the end of the game, the temper started flaring. There was a lot of cheap shot bullshit going on in this game. But Chiefs are the team to beat, not just in the AFC. The Chiefs are the team to beat in the NFL, not just because they won the Super Bowl last year. With Patrick Mahomes, with the weapons that he has at his arsenal, with Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy still coaching, they are the bar, and everybody's chasing it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give them credit, but I think the team that beats the Chiefs is the team that builds the best defense to stop them.
The last person
you
to beat
cannot. Here's what I'm saying: you cannot build a team that's going to try to gunsling with the Chiefs. It's not going to happen.
You were just talking about defense. You were talking about the defense built to stop their offense.
You have to build a defense to stop the Chiefs' offense.
What do we invest all of our money in?
It wasn't good enough.
We had like the
I'm not
best
saying- no.
secondary of legendary secondary as far as names and talent.
Who's the
But it
last
just didn't
person
work
to
It
beat him in the
obviously
playoffs?
wasn't good enough. You talked yourself about Judon and Yannick not having the impact this year.
Brady. Brady's the last person to beat them in the playoffs in Foxborough.
Really?
Yep.
With
And he's going
Mahomes?
to do it again.
It
Yes.
wasn't in Foxborough.
It was a
They beat 'em in-
shootout.
they
Oh, wait, it
beat
was
'em
in Kansas City. You're right.
Yeah.
It was in Kansas City in the
2
playoffs.
years ago, I guess?
Yeah.
But don't forget, 4 jumped off sides and lost that game.
Brady won that game. He's going to do it again.
I don't remember the game. I don't remember it off the top of my head. Well,
All right.
so Brady for another Super Bowl. Yay!
Cheers.
Yay! Can't wait.
I hope Belichick never wins another game.
All right, guys, it's time for a Liquor Stop Brew of the Week. Scott, what did Jerry and the crew hook us up with this week?
So this one
It is
is
apparently an IPA. If you
if you can't read
that, it is.
we
not
don't
as
even have
big
to
as it
zoom
could
in
be.
on that. You can't read it. You need to go get your eyes checked. Just like you need to get your ears checked with those headphones of yours.
What?
So this comes to us from Smoketown Brewing Station. These guys are out of Brunswick, Maryland. This is their Potomac English IPA. 7.4%. This is directly from them. We know what you're thinking. English IPA. What in the, well, let us tell you. Stronger than your typical IPA, or stronger than your typical pale ale. English style IPAs are characterized by a hearty helping of hops for bittering, while English yeast is produced to lend a fruity character of flavor and aroma. Blended with Falconer's Flight, Citra hops, Potomac English IPA will have you drinking pinkies up all night. 'Tis truly a beautiful work of art, mate.
I'm not going to lie to you. I like it.
didn't even read
and
that.
I'm the only one that's
This-
bluntly honest with these things,
And
but I like it.
This is a perfect beer for Scott because it says serve cold. Enjoy with friends.
Specially made for Scott.
It gives him directions.
Yes, exactly.
Don't serve your friends warm beer.
And
Yeah.
this beer had amazing head. It was a very good head.
so good that it just exploded all over me on the show before the show.
Here we go with this explosions and phallic talk again.
I think I need to put a nipple on mine because I'm still not there yet. Ready
nursing
to-
it?
Yeah, I'm nursing it. It is
actually-
good. It's not bad flavor, especially for an IPA. You guys know I'm not a huge IPA guy. There's certain ones that I like. I like the milkshake IPAs more than I like a regular IPA.
Is it me or
This
does
is
it
pretty
have
good.
like a almost like a stout-ish, like slight hint to it? Like
Yeah,
it has
I
a
guess.
little
I can see
heavier,
that.
like coffee.
It's definitely
or
not
chocolate
bitter.
type-
There's something covering up the bitter. So
Yeah.
it's got something going on.
Well, make
Coffee
sure
time.
you get down to Liquor Stop. Tell them Birdland BS sent you. Get your 10% off.
I'm going to reluctantly press this button.
I don't even know what to do right now. Like I really don't even. We're going to talk Orioles baseball. Orioles baseball.
Whoa.
ish. We're talking Orioles baseball ish.
Yeah, sort of.
We're barely getting into the roster. Let's
Good,
just
I
put
need
it that
to
way.
ease into this.
We're talking baseball.
So you gotta bring up the whole
Yeah.
thing about Davey and kind of
Yeah.
where
So
we're going with
before we get into too much here, a couple of things. I want to put our thoughts and well wishes out there for former Orioles second baseman, former manager Davey Johnson. He was recently hospitalized with COVID. Love Davey. He was probably one of my favorite managers.
Yeah.
In my tenure, I got obviously Earl.
in your tenure.
Earl Weaver, meaning like what
Whoa,
I was
were you
able to
part of
see.
the team
No,
that we didn't
you know
know
what I mean.
What's this wee shit?
Oh wait, he was Chris Hoyle's backup catcher. I got it. All right.
I was.
He warming him up.
Like we all know, Earl Weaver obviously is the greatest manager in Orioles history, but Davey Johnson, Earl Weaver's before my time. Davey Johnson was one of my favorite managers. I love his personality. Obviously, this was like the mid to late 90s when
they made a
Orioles
little bit of a run,
made
yeah.
a run, and they were going up against the Indians with Albert Bell and Carlos Barriega
Indians,
and all
the
those
Angels,
guys. Yeah, like he was great. We're pulling for you, Davey. He's 77 years old now. Like that's. It's crazy.
Getting older.
It's just crazy.
Go ahead, Drew.
I was gonna say I don't know if you guys saw, but I saw the news right before I came over tonight. Dan Johnson, people aren't gonna really know the name, but Dan Johnson was the former Tides manager before the new regime came in.
Yeah.
He passed away from COVID.
Oh,
shit,
man, that's
no, I
awful.
didn't hear that, man.
Locking us apart.
Well, way to add on to the
Sorry, I
the
didn't
already
bring anybody
the already
down.
sad part of
Yeah, I
this
know.
show.
This fucking
We're-
year sucks. We know.
He's not even done with the sad news, and you're gonna pile on top.
Yeah.
What the hell's
Kobe-
wrong with you, Drew?
I'm the
Kobe's
reaper.
anniversary,
You know what?
Gabba's birthday.
Just for that, we're gonna somehow get Justin Tucker on the show, and you're gonna have to talk to
I'll
him.
shit on him. I don't care.
So
yeah.
The other news. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
You're the one that-
with all this terrible news going on around baseball, I mean, the passing of a legend, Hank Aaron passed away at the age of 86.
Hammer and Hank.
Yeah, man.
I mean, the guy.
He's still, in my opinion, the greatest home run hitter of all time.
He's the king. He's the home run king.
Yeah.
All the shit that you want to talk about with, the Mark McGuires, the Sammy Sosas, the Barry Bonds, and all that stuff. I get it, like that they, brought entertainment and all that stuff, and I'll still stand pat that I think it was good for baseball for them to do what they did because it helped put baseball back on the map. But when you're talking about the pure side of the game, there's nobody better than Hank Aaron.
His stat line, right? We know he's a Hall of Famer. He was elected in 1982, which this is going to I'm going to say this, and we're not going to go off on a tangent on this.
Can't promise anything.
Did you know that he was elected at 97.8% of the vote?
Oh, here we go. Ken Griffey. Is this where this is going?
I mean, look back of anybody.
Yeah.
How who the fuck was the 2%?
I know. It's ridiculous. There's always somebody out there that's either racist or biased or some
But
sort of way that's just not going to vote for the obvious pick.
Or they just want to be cool. They just be like, who didn't vote for him?
Yeah, it was I.
But at
Write
that
an article,
point,
a book about me.
even back in 82, like I think especially nowadays, I think we are in a point. If you have 95% of the vote or more, the people who didn't vote for you
Just didn't want to fuck
Should be replaced.
should be questioned and have their vote like on the bubble.
Well, let's justify it, right? Listen to these numbers. He played 23 years with the Brewers and the Braves combined. Career average of 305.
Hall of Fame number.
3,771 hits.
Hall of Fame number.
That alone will get you in the Hall of Fame.
He's in the Hall of Fame.
755 home runs.
That alone will get you in the
That
Hall of
alone
Fame.
will get you in the Hall of Fame. 2,297 RBIs.
That number is pretty damn good in the Hall of Fame.
And then elected into the Hall of Fame on my birth year in 1982.
We got
How
one
old
more.
do you feel?
I don't feel old.
We got one more over here.
Go ahead.
He is one of my favorite players of all time. I might mix the numbers up, but he never hit 50. He had 8 years of hitting in the 40s.
Yeah.
7 years of hitting in the 30s.
Yeah.
That's just fucking consistency.
It's consistency.
across the board.
That's what they were talking about. That's part of the reason that everybody was like, how the hell do you not vote for this guy?
I'll take a quarter for Chris Davis if we can hit
And
any of
honestly,
that.
with everything coming out, I would have no problem if the writers, and I doubt they are, but if these writers that did not vote him in back in 1982, if they were still around on that alone, they should not have a vote.
And you got to think
in
about
this.
the time and day that he was able to do this stuff. This was 1974, I believe, when he actually broke the record.
Yeah.
A black man in Atlanta in the South in the 70s.
Well, and you put a clip on Twitter that I
Yes.
thought was really good, and you'll hear a famous Orioles announcer in this clip.
Yeah, John Miller kind of talks a little bit about this going through the whole home run process.
The crowd booing. The crowd booing. Downing has to ignore the sound effects.
I never heard Vin Scully's call until about 25 years later, and it was pure Vin Scully. He did, a way back and she's gone,
Ball is a high drive into deep left center field. Buckner goes back to the fence. It is gone.
And then he let the crowd roar for about 2 or 3 minutes. He didn't say a word. He actually stood up from his spot in the booth and moved back a few steps at the old Fulton County Stadium to avoid the temptation of just jumping in over the roar of the crowd. There was so much racial animosity directed at Aaron. The FBI was following him and following up all these death threats. But Vin Scully's call came afterward, which to me was the greatest call in sports broadcasting history, extemporaneous, live. He said,
What a marvelous moment for baseball. What a marvelous moment for Atlanta and the state of Georgia. What a marvelous moment for the country and the world. A black man is getting a standing ovation in the Deep South for breaking a record of an all-time baseball idol.
but he described the scene at home plate, and the first person that got to Henry Aaron was his mom. And she grabbed him in a big embrace, the way Vinny described it, so excited about that it had happened. The reality was that she was so worried that some maniac was going to shoot him right there that she wrapped her body around her son and said, well, if they do it now, they'll have to take me instead. And,
so point.
Yeah, so that was a clip from I think it was a radio station out of I think it was Tampa area. But yeah, I mean, I get chills just sitting there listening. And to me, personally, this is kind of going back with John Miller for a second. John Miller, in my opinion, one of the greatest play-by-play announcers in Orioles history.
Yeah.
I would welcome him back with open arms at any point. I don't care how much Masson doesn't want to pay him. I'd welcome him back because this guy can paint a picture. I didn't have to hear the audio clips of Vin Scully because John Miller just does a great job of painting the picture for you. And they show the video that Fred tweeted. Go check it out because the video is really well paired with the video of the scene. You see that shot and they focus in on. She goes around him, and it wasn't, to his point, it wasn't an embrace hug.
Yeah, it wasn't a joyous hug.
Herself
it
over
was
him.
it was a nervous hug.
Yeah.
It was a scared hug. It was a mom protecting a son.
Especially
hug.
because fans were already running on the field at that point.
Yeah, it's just so crazy to think of the time and day and age, just what he was able to do
on the field and off the field, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been an advocate for Major League Baseball since the start of his career until the day he died.
Just an overall, during that time, civil rights, and then being just the philanthropy that he had. Going out, he showed up to he obviously showed up to Barry's when Barry hit it, even though everybody disagreed with it. He showed up for 21-31, right? So you had all of these different times and major events that he represented baseball as a whole and was there for them on multiple levels.
Go ahead, Ryan.
While we're on the topic of amazing baseball players, Hall of Fame, I want to give a little shout out to a tweet I saw from a buddy of yours today, Kyle J. Andrews. He's a writer for The Sun. Can baseball writers agree that greenies, a.k.a. speed, a.k.a. uppers, a.k.a. coast-to-coast, a.k.a. snap, and amphetamines are just as bad as steroids? Can you just start voting and leave your fake history where you think people played uninhibited and enhanced for decades? They didn't. They were just able to cheat because the tests weren't good enough to catch them. Right. Now the tests got good enough to catch them. Just move on. Like, if you want to put an asterisk, go ahead. But honestly, the whole book should be full of asterisks.
Right, and I agree with that. And again, it all comes down to personal preference, how you view things. And like I said, my viewpoint is Hammer and Hank will always be the greatest home run hitter of all time because he did it naturally. He did it organically. He didn't do it chemically induced, and he did it for a very, very long time consistently.
Oh, he's one of the greatest there is. I was just saying with this the baseball writers have too much power. That's kind of how I look at it. Well, and this is all part of it when you're talking about somebody decided not to vote for him.
Right.
We should look into why.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Drew.
No, I was just like, the main difference, too, is he beat out Babe Ruth.
Right.
Okay, Babe Ruth played in a time when nobody hit home runs like Babe Ruth did. You had so many far less teams in the league. He was a white guy.
Yeah. There were only white guys?
There was only white guys. He didn't receive any threat. He didn't have any worries like we were talking about with his mom, being worried and him having the death threats and all that. So to me, I can't say enough. Like, I guess I keep kind of reiterating, breaking, the other record. But he's the best he's the best home run hitter of all time. He's one of, if not the best player in general of all time. I'm sorry for just consistency.
It's a very good argument.
Like 5 or 6 great years, and then okay,
right.
No, you were great,
consistent
every single year.
Numbers don't lie.
And he was apparently a huge Ravens fan.
Yeah, I did see something along those lines. But so you mentioned the whole thing with Babe. He actually gave, even when he broke Babe's record, right? He did some interviews after that, and he showed his respect for Babe and what he did for the game. And one of the stories that joked around that always went around, and we've all heard, right, was Babe Ruth. Some people out there, well, Babe had to be doing something. Did you see how big he got? Babe was doing that because before and after every game, he's eating about 6 hot dogs and 2 beers.
He was smoking cigars in the batter's box. It was a different world.
Right, and that was what somebody like Hank thought was impressive because Hank knew what he had to put into it. But here's a guy who doesn't care, and it isn't not necessarily caring about his diet, but he's not caring about his diet. Maybe he was in the right weight room. There's not necessarily stories of it, but the guy is smoking. He's drinking
Babe
all
Ruth
during
had the
that.
most natural talent of anybody. I mean, he would have been a Hall of Fame pitcher if he'd have chose to. He'd have been a Hall of Fame home run hitter. I mean, he could do it all while eating 4 double cheeseburgers if he wanted to. It didn't matter.
Babe Ruth was once in a lifetime talent. Hank Aaron was a once in a multi-generational talent. That's how good Hank Aaron is, and that's what my point was with bringing up the 97%. It should have been 100. That should have been the first. We shouldn't have waited for Mariano Rivera to be the first. It should have been Hank. Now that I'm looking back.
All right, so let's get into actually some Oriole news. I know there was a player recently at a younger age with the team that decided to hang him up pretty early.
So local native out of Frederick, Brandon Klein, really churned away for about the past 5-6 years. He's really been trying to work his way up through the minor leagues. Didn't follow the path as quickly as he really wanted to.
He had a couple cups of tea here. I mean,
he went through 2 seasons, 2019 and 2020. He played in 37 games. He was 1-4, 5.48 ERA. He was nothing special. But what's interesting is that at 29 years old, as a pitcher, he's done with baseball.
Yeah, I think this is just a classic. He was a 4A kind of guy. He was a guy that was going to teeter back and forth. A talented guy, but not a gifted guy. You know what I mean? A guy that could, like I said, hover there between AAA and the majors, going back and forth. But how long do you do that, making the crap money that they make?
Yeah.
And all the time that takes up, if you are trying to start a family and those kinds of things. And I understand the dream side of it, but if you don't believe in it, you don't see that dream coming to reality, I think this was a smart decision.
Well, and that's his thing. To your point, I mean, he said he wanted to focus. He put out a tweet. It was a very long, heartfelt message to the Orioles and thanking them and everything. But, he wants to go focus on his family, his spiritual well-being. I have heard that his baseball knowledge is actually pretty good. There is some speculation.
Maybe we see him again.
There's some speculation out in social media that maybe, since his family is from Frederick, obviously the Keys are, no longer necessarily a thing.
They're the draft league or whatever.
Right. But maybe he tries his hand at, a little bit of on-air talent type thing. If team likes what he does, maybe he comes up and maybe he's the cheap option for them.
I like what you did there. So that sets us up perfectly for the next topic. Is Masson is going under some massive overhaul changes with their programming, with their on-air talent.
Some welcome, some not.
Yeah, some of these moves kind of shocking. I'll be honest with you. Jim Hunter, longtime broadcaster, longtime part of all of the opening day ceremonies and everything. I know I'm hard on opening day. I've said it's been the same.
This is classic
thing over and over. This is what you saw every year. Jim Hunter out there introducing the players. He's been a staple with this Orioles organization for a long time.
Before that, it was John Miller.
Yeah, Jim Hunter, John Miller, two totally.
Oh no, I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying we let John Miller go. I'm okay with Jim Hunter, but I wish John Miller was still around.
And my thing isn't like that. Some of these guys were let go. It's the way that they were let go. Like there was no like. Hey,
we learned from Jim Hunter's Twitter.
Right. We learned from his Twitter. There was no public address about it. There was nothing that was like, this is a guy that wasn't here for 2 or 3 years. This is a guy that was in, with this organization for 12 years, I believe it was. A long time.
And so I'm just going to say this, and I'm not going to get into details. I'll talk to you. I haven't even talked to you about this, and I'll talk off air to all of you guys about this. Somebody that we know, for Masson, was also let go actually back in September. We didn't hear anything about that.
Wow.
We're just now learning that with these cuts, they also made production cuts across the board.
This goes to just show how dire straits the Orioles are from a money perspective. I mean, we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth here in a second. But to kind of wrap this section of it up, Jim Hunter was let go. Talking about on-air talent. Mike Bordick, former player, and who's been around now for the past few years as a color commentator, he's gone. Dave Johnson, also former player.
Been around for a while.
Yep. Tom Davis, another staple that's been around for a long time on the pregame shows. Yeah, exactly. Rick Dempsey, another former player and a guy that's been with this organization since 1980 something.
Pre and post game for the past 10 years.
Yep. And then I think the one that kind of, I think, hurt the fan base the most was when they officially announced that Gary Thorne will not be back. I know last year they had their contract dispute that they couldn't settle, and Gary wasn't a part of the team last year. But here's the thing. Again, this is a guy who has been in our homes, if you're an Orioles fan, for a very, very long time now.
Unexpectedly wasn't here last year, by the way.
Exactly.
Because of COVID.
They didn't give him a proper send-off, I think, is where it hurts me the most, is that they didn't show this guy the respect, right? And actually, the last time that we got to see him on the air was the last game of the season 2 years ago against the Red Sox, and he took a couple of minutes to talk about where this organization is. He was very candid about his comments, and here it is. I'm going to play it for you.
So for Oriole fans, as the season concludes, the question is, what have we learned? I think what we have learned is that competing in the American League East is no easier than it was 10 years ago, and it costs a lot of money to get there. For the Orioles, patience, patience, patience. Do the fans have it? Do the players have it? Does the front office have it? It's going to have to be there because this is not going to come easy. Yes, in AA and A ball, there are some pitchers, and it looks like a couple of them may make it to the ball club next year. That can be very important for this team showing at the end of next season as to whether or not it is on the right path. But it is not going to be easy. There are no guarantees. No guarantees in a number 1 or 2 draft pick. There are no guarantees that the numbers that were put up this year by players will also be put up next year. The Orioles look like they have a core for offense. They do not have the pitching, neither starting nor relieving. They've got means to help head it up, but the bullpen has got to be redone because it simply did not get the job done this season. Can Oriole fans wait long enough for that to happen? And are there enough arms out there to supply the needs of the likes of the Orioles? We're going to find that out. But again, the positive side of it is this is baseball. And you know something? The term that applies to every baseball season and every game that is played is you never know. If they have the offense they had this year, especially in September, and if they can find a couple of starters who can get them through some games, and if they can put a bullpen together that will have a good backside to it, and right now it looks like it might, who knows? Yeah, you're competing in the East. The Red Sox should have been much better record-wise this season. The Yankees, if they are healthy, will be unbelievably deep next year. So that won't be easy either. But for Oriole fans, you simply have got to be patient. Going to the ballpark will become more of an experience, not only with what's going on the field, but everything going on around it. There are the kids' corners. There's all the food to eat. It's part of getting people to the ballpark. That's the way it is now in baseball, not just in Baltimore, but everywhere else too. And there is nothing wrong with that. Enjoy the experience. Remember, the game is supposed to be entertainment. Entertainment. You come to be entertained, you come to watch, enjoy what goes on the field, and then go home and live your life. For the Orioles next season, how much enjoyment will there be regarding what goes on the field? You just never know.
And I thought a lot of that was very valid, even a couple years ago, now 2 seasons ago, that he made these comments.
I was just saying, you posted that, and I actually had to go back and look at the original video to go, when the hell was this done? Yeah. He wasn't on the air last year. Did they bring
the end of last or 2018?
What he said was so poignant and so true, even for this past year, the shortened season.
Yeah.
He talked about it being a different year, and I was like, you didn't. I didn't think you broadcasted last year. And I had to go back and go, wow, his words and what he's saying translated almost perfectly.
Yeah.
So while it wasn't a good set, I don't know that should they give him a send-off? Absolutely. I don't know that he could have ended this year with any better words than he did in 2019 because it's still so poignantly true.
No, and I agree with that. I think the bigger point of this, and I think what hit home for me, is just how we talk about being spoiled fan base, just like how fair weather fans are anymore. Like people don't go out and experience the park and the game for what the game is. We have all these expectations of winning all the time, and we get a little bit of taste and we want it all the time, and that's just not reality. We're not the Yankees. We're not the Dodgers. We're not the Red Sox. We're not these guys that have endless pockets. Obviously, right now, the Orioles are struggling to even pay their broadcasters. Like, that's just unrealistic of this expectation. Go out and enjoy this team. Enjoy the experience. Enjoy the life experiences with your kids, with your family, with your relatives. Like, that's what baseball is supposed to be about. That's what sports are supposed to be about. And when winning comes to fruition, enjoy that too. But don't let that be the reason that you go. Go because you love the game and go because you enjoy the experience. Go ahead, James.
I think Chris Davis should go into the office and be like, look, my salary should pay for all these broadcasters to come back because I suck at what I do, and they're better than me. Put them back in the booth. Take my contract now.
You know, I like where you're going with this. The only thing I would say, because we're left with Kevin Brown. Yeah.
This is all Chris Davis' fault.
Jeff Arnold. I was okay with last year. Melanie Newman, people can, like Drew's over here going, get her. Go ahead, Drew. Show everybody what you're telling them.
It's just, we were talking about in our group chat yesterday, the day before. It's like, you're just super maybe it could be different with the fans, and he was saying it earlier with fans, but it's just like she's one, like, it didn't seem like had a lot of enthusiasm. Same with Arnold. Yeah. Like with all the newer guys, like Kevin Brown and Arnold, they didn't seem like they have a lot of enthusiasm.
I'm not one to like hate on the new crew because it's not what this is about. Like,
no,
I think all these guys can be good. I just like the Melanie Newmans of the world, the Jeff Arnolds of the world, the Kevin Browns of the world. They don't have the local ties. They don't have the ties to the team. And they don't have the name. Like a lot of the names that we've brought in over the years that we've been used to, they already had a reputation coming in here. Like Gary Thorne had a reputation coming in here. Scott Garceau had a reputation coming in here. John Miller had a reputation coming in here. Michael Regai, even when he was here, he had a reputation coming in here. All these guys built it up to come in here, and we got used to that. You got to build to get there, and I think these new guys bring an interesting perspective. That's why I'm not willing to say anything negative.
I get what you're saying, but Garceau has built his career around Baltimore, right? And for him, he's a guy that you leave on the staff. So the staff becomes Kevin Brown, Jeff Arnold, Melanie Newman, Ben McDonald is staying on, Rob Long is staying on as well. Garceau in some portions will be there. Roberts and Dempsey, the two of them, obviously Baltimore icons. Roberts is a guy, his baseball knowledge is great.
Yeah.
And Ben McDonald's great. As like the non-Orioles fan here, I love listening to Ben McDonald.
You just love his LSU.
No, I mean, I don't know.
I agree with Ryan. I like Ben McDonald a lot.
He's the easiest one to listen to. I mean, Rob Long's good enough because I listen to him every morning going to work, but Ben McDonald's great.
Play-by-play. Yeah. But the thing is, all this doesn't look good as an organization, period, because, number one, our stadium is up at the end of this year. This doesn't look good for anything right now, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and what was kind of interesting that I heard, and you've never heard this from any professional sports team that I've ever heard, but the Orioles actually tried with Trey Mancini going through everything that he went through.
Oh, my God, yeah, this actually pissed me off.
And Anthony Santander tried to defer their contracts during arbitration. Like, how bad is it in the warehouse right now? How tight are the pockets? Are they literally dumping the change out of their piggy banks to try to pay these guys? How bad is it?
I think they were done before they paid the Nationals, and now it's over.
But hear me out. Here's my theory on this. Right, they're trying to get the salaries across the board as low as possible, so that the brothers can afford the inheritance tax. Because as it stood last year between Masson and the Orioles, they could not afford it. If they cut the fat on Masson, which is what they just did, they're cutting a fat on a lot of the contracts. They're trying to defer as many contracts with the arbitration situation between Santander and Mancini. I know Joe Carlozo brought it up. There's rumors out there being floated out that Santander is they're open to trading him.
Yeah,
which is crazy in my opinion because he's a guy that you could go on into the future with.
Around. Yeah.
So
We can get Ricky Vaughn for cheap too.
Something's going on, and I think it has to do with I honestly think they truly want to keep baseball in Baltimore, but we're gonna have at minimum 2 to 3 slim years here in Baltimore. Well, I thought we were 3 years away before. I think we're 5 years away now.
We need a stadium.
Because they're going to keep it in Baltimore.
You got to figure out ways to bring in other streams of revenue. And one of the things that we have been talking about for I don't even know how long at this point has been a streaming option. Right? Because how long have we wanted...
You're really going to bring this up?
How long have we wanted a streaming option from Masson? Well, they finally announced that they are going to offer a pay-for streaming option from Masson for all in-network games. Yay! It's about fucking time.
Did you read the fine print?
I didn't. Apparently not. So here we go. What's the fine print?
You have to sign in with your TV provider.
So it's nothing. So that already existed.
There are
no.
So this is what the rumors are.
Because TV providers can be YouTube TV, can be AT&T.
But no. When you think about when you're signing in like on HBO, right? If you do not have HBO already in your subscription with like YouTube TV, you cannot sign into HBO Max. You can't do it.
Yeah.
So you have to have it in order to get it. So for example, DirecTV has Masson. Their AT&T TV. They have Masson in their programming. If you have AT&T TV, you can sign in. You can get Masson. If you have YouTube TV like we do, free plug, there you go. That's where it's not going. We're not going to get it.
Party foul.
This isn't even that hard. Like, come on. Why do we have Masson 1 and 2? You need to get rid of Masson 2, period. You need to make the Orioles and the Nats play at separate times. That way you can broadcast 2 games a day.
You got to get the MLB to agree to that, and that's not going to happen.
The MLB just forced the Orioles to give up millions and millions of dollars. They got to play ball somehow, or they're going to lose an entire team. It's not possible.
The MLB is also willing to move.
Masson on everything. Why is Masson not on YouTube TV? They'll give you money. It might not be great money, but you apparently don't have any money. So take the money from YouTube. They're loaded. They're paying 13-year-olds $8 million a year to open boxes. So take
Play
the
with
money.
Toys.
Like, and just get this going. Like, I don't watch Orioles games because I have YouTube TV. I used to accidentally watch Orioles games. Now I don't.
I was going to say, is that really the reason you don't watch Orioles games?
Yeah, because I'd be scrolling aimlessly like every male in America does, and an Oriole game's on, and I leave it on until I'm bored.
Yeah. Go ahead,
That's how
Drew.
baseball works.
Yeah, look, okay, so let's go inside baseball a little bit with you guys out there that aren't in the know.
You mean Ryan?
Me.
No. I'm actually talking about the fans.
The fans that are watching right now, just so you know, are baseball fans. Otherwise, they're going to be tuned in. So Ryan's the only non-baseball fan right now.
You'll get this. You guys all have a good laugh.
Let him talk.
All right.
Have a good laugh. The inside joke is I'm the only one amongst us that doesn't give in and suck on Apple's.
YouTube TV is not
listen,
Apple.
No, listen. You let me talk. So listen, you guys don't. You guys rely on your YouTube TV. That's all right. Look, I have DirecTV. Look, you guys can use my sign on whenever you want to watch Masson out in your backyards or wherever.
How's your signal when it rains?
I don't get it. It's still fine. I've had no trouble with DirecTV. Just saying.
Well, I appreciate that, Drew.
Just saying.
But it doesn't help the average viewer out there.
I mean,
I really thought that this was groundbreaking. I thought, Christ, we've been asking for a streaming option for a decade, it feels like at this point.
They hate money.
So I don't understand this. Like it to me, it's a simple fix.
He made all his money on one lawsuit with lead paint and then just sat on it. and his ex-wife took half of it. Work with her.
So here's the thing. Like if I'm gonna say if the post was a quote unquote like typo, right? If they did not intend to say by TV provider only, I'm literally sitting here looking for the piece. Masson has announced plans to launch its own and operated dedicated sport media app, creating an innovative digital experience that will provide viewers enhanced access to coverage across all platforms, right? Sounds good. For the first time ever, fans throughout Masson's 7-state broadcast territory, that's where it starts to go wrong for me, will have the opportunity to live stream the network's entire programming. If you're not in the 7-state territory,
you still can't watch.
You can't watch it, right? MLB has the in on that, including all Baltimore Orioles games. By using the new Masson app and authenticating via TV provider login. That is their entire statement on
I
MASN.
feel like you could have done that last year just through the Comcast. If you would have signed in with your Comcast and you're in the state of Maryland, you could have watched live TV on the Comcast app. So you've invented nothing.
You invented you
inventive.
copied and pasted and put MASN as an app.
And now here's the thing. I'll say if this is the first step, you got to get past the contract, and then like next year, that's where you're doing it. Okay, this is the stepping platform. I get that everything has, but if you're gonna do it in this situation, you need as much money as you can get. We were texting back and forth. I honestly would pay $6 a month for just MASN, and especially I would probably even go to 8 to 10 if it's on demand. I would pay 8 to 10, and I guarantee you, I'm not the only one. How many of you guys honestly would pay anywhere between $3? Because some people are floating out $3.99.
I pay $5.
All right, so you pay $5. Drew, how much would you pay?
I have DirecTV.
It's already paid for.
Well, I'm saying like for $5 with this MASN, if they would get in to have like we said before, like TVs in the bullpen, and have that
different
capability with
camera
just
angles and stuff.
MASN, that would be awesome.
Right.
But it's not going to happen.
But see,
it's the Orioles.
they'd be smart. I mean, I know it's a little harder with code right now. I don't never understood why MASN didn't start covering Towson games.
Well, and then also just we've talked about you have to have MLB cooperate with the scheduling. If one of them's playing at the same time, sell the other game. You don't need to have both of them on MASN 1 and MASN 2. Play whichever one.
Make a profit off one of the
Make
games.
them rotate and sell it to Fox. Make a profit off the other one because you're not getting enough ad revenue with the way it is.
Yeah.
So there's people that are getting the ad revenue. They're already been entrenched for years. Sell them the game. Go every other.
All right. We've gone off on this tangent, and it was hard, but it was needed. I think it was a little therapy for all of us. So a few quick little things that we've got to talk about. Not a direct impact on the Orioles because it's out in Arizona, but Cactus League was saying that they did not want MLB to start on time because there's a high code rate in Phoenix, which is where a lot of those teams are. But interestingly enough, this morning, the executive for the Cactus League said, "Oh, we'll start. We'll figure out how to make it work, even if MLB wants to start on time."
This is going to be an ongoing change every day until spring training
I think you
starts.
mean shit show.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's going to change daily. We have no idea if there's going to be spring ball. We have no idea if there's going to be fans in the stands. We have no idea if it's going to be a shortened season. None of this shit is definitive yet. It's no sense even talking about it.
Rob Manfred says full spring training, 162 games.
Yeah,
season.
he said that last year too. Prior to everything,
We'll see how that works out.
We'll see what happens.
The other major news that I think we could get into for a quick second. MLBPA got a proposal from MLB for the universal DH and expanded playoffs.
Morons.
They rejected it.
Morons.
The union stance apparently has all along been that it did not want to talk about a trade of the universal DH. So they basically don't want to get expanded playoffs if it means they have to give a universal DH because the universal DH benefits a group of players. So they have now turned it down.
It benefits the game of baseball. It makes it a more attractive option.
So
baseball is so far behind some of these other major sports right now. They need to do things like this to make it more attractive.
So here's the deal. This comes down to the pitchers in the American League. And I say that, I think that a lot of the pitchers in the National League are fine with not hitting. The problem is now you're putting a professional hitter against a professional pitcher. They don't want that. They don't want it.
Stupid.
Maybe they should put in a 3-run line. That saved basketball.
It's stupid.
Hit it past here. You get 3 runs automatically.
Home run,
Nobody wants to watch the pitcher bat.
You can bunt for a home run as long as it doesn't pass pitcher's mound.
Have you ever gone to a baseball game and said, "Oh, I can't wait for the pitchers to bat"?
No.
Never.
Sorry, I just threw my...
Never. There's a handful of... Scott, don't even fucking try to justify it. There's a handful of pitchers that have ever been decent hitters in the history of baseball that you can count on one hand. Nobody goes to a game and says, "I want to see a pitcher bat." You know it's a guaranteed out.
So is Cal Ripken.
Huh?
So is Cal Ripken.
Guaranteed out. 277.
So...
Don't pat me on the...
Jesus Christ. We're going down a rabbit hole. For me, I get what you're saying. I think
It's
there
just
is
stupid.
There is a story. Like I agree with you. It's stupid from an overall standpoint. I do get some validity because I liked. I agree with you. There is a handful of hitters, but I tell you what, if the Orioles were in the National League, I would have loved to see Bartolo Colon hit.
Again, that's one pitcher.
I would have loved to see Clayton Kershaw hit.
No.
Madison
Handful.
Bumgarner.
Handful.
I get it. I know that. And I get that. I get
Handful,
what you're
and
saying.
Bartolo Colon took till he was fucking 41 to hit a goddamn home
Right.
run.
Right.
And
What
the thing
kind of
is that-
proof is
Did he
that?
do
Yeah,
in one
suffers.
game or something?
You just
Yes.
want to watch his jelly rolls
No,
bounce
but
as
this
he's
is
running
where
around
you
the
suffer.
bases.
The team that had the pitcher up, if they're down and the pitcher's up, but having a great game, do I pull him? Do I pitch hit him?
You're shoestring yourself.
And to Joe's point, like, what was there not to like about the expanded playoffs?
Yeah.
The playoffs this past year was the most entertaining thing about baseball.
It was the only thing about baseball.
Right. It was the only thing. I mean, it was just. I don't understand what there's not to like. It's more marketable for
more money
MLB. It's
for
more
you to
money.
give it.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm simply playing devil's advocate that I personally wouldn't have mind seeing some of these guys hit. It would have been cool. But I get it. Is it something that would move it along?
I go to
Absolutely.
the bathroom.
The
When the pitcher comes
MLBPA
up.
just hates the owners. They're never going to agree to anything. That's all there is to it.
This
They hate
fucking-
them.
Well,
Yeah,
we're
this league just loves to shit on itself.
the
over and
MLB.
over
So
and over.
the agreement is up at the end of this coming year. So
No more baseball. It's the end of it.
This is the same situation that happened in 94.
94.
Scab baseball players. Let's go. I'll play.
It's the same
Hey,
situation.
want to play with me?
I'll go. Let's go.
All right,
All right.
guys. So another topic we haven't talked a whole lot about.
I'm gonna put you two on camera because this is a lot of you guys. I'll chime in here and there.
Ryan, we're still in the same position. We talked about the Terps men's basketball squad a couple of weeks ago.
Drew, it's your pee break.
I gotta go take it. I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick.
I can't believe you're excited about Orioles.
They're still just as bipolar as they were at the beginning of the year to this point now. They lost to number 7 Michigan, but they bounced back and beat a number 17 Minnesota. I mean, they played one of their best defensive games of the year in that game. They looked good. I don't know what to read. I mean, they're 9-7. They're 10th in the Big Ten, but some people still think that they got an outside shot at making the tourney. Like, that's so crazy to me, being 10th in the Big Ten and potentially one of the final tourney teams.
I mean, I don't think you end up at 10th. I think you end up at like 7th or 8th if you're making the tournament, which is about 5 or 6 more wins. You have 3 huge wins. They're 3 on the road, top 20, most of them top 10, 15 wins on your resume. That's enough if you have the rest of the numbers to back it up.
Right. Well, like I said, I mean, in this game, they beat Minnesota 63-49 the other night. And again, probably one of their best defensive games they played all year. Held the Gophers under 50 points. First time they've been held under 50 points in 3 years. We talk about how this Big Ten, they've got a lot of big bodies. They got a lot of physical big men. And we thought that this team would struggle with that. Seems to be like, even with some of these smaller lineups now, they seem to be holding their own.
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of toughness. And like we talked, we do have length. We don't just have that giant big man to battle the dominant 7-footers we have across the Big Ten. But every other position outside of your 5 is long and lean and athletic and can play defense, and they can shoot. So the nights that they can shoot, they win. And the nights they can't shoot, they don't win.
Well, one guy that's kind of, again, had some ups and downs this year, guy you're real high on, Eric Ayala, stepped up big in this game, had 21 points, 8 of 14 from the field, 3 of 5 from three. We were kind of talking before the season started, who would be the leaders on this squad? Obviously, you lost Bruno 2 years ago. You lose Jalen Sticks this year. We figured, Morcell, just being the senior, he would be that. But we were kind of curious, would Eric Ayala kind of step up into that leadership role? And maybe in the beginning of the season, it didn't look that way, but it's starting to see like he's kind of taking that leadership role.
Yeah, I mean, first you got to give a lot of credit to Dante Scott because he was definitely one of the more vocal leaders on the team with Morcell. Morcell's unquestionably the engine and the will to on this team that gets these guys going. But Dante Scott's had a lot of grit and leadership. But Eric Ayala, he just got back from this groin injury. It looks like it's not hampering him anymore. And hopefully that maybe it was a lingering injury a little longer because they put him on the bench. All of a sudden, we hadn't been hearing about this at all. So hopefully he's healthy now and he can get under control because he's got the talent. It just isn't always there. I don't know why it comes and goes.
Right. And we mentioned Daryl Morcell. Daryl Morcell, he's got that Baltimore
He is
thing.
Baltimore.
He is the definition of Baltimore.
I was gonna say, like, this is one thing I do want to talk to you guys about, because for me, like, I look at him and I say, like, just social media page, like, between the Terps and his, been blowing up the past several weeks. He seems like a confident leader on this team, and I really love it. But the production is just not there. I mean, this game, he played 32 minutes. He had 4 points. He went 2 for 6 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, 5 boards, 2 assists, 1 blocks, 3 turnovers out of him in this game. So he did hurt them. And I know that you guys were happy about the win. They stopped him with a D. But this offense only put up 63 points. And part of that was because Daryl Morcell was just not present in this game.
You're not looking on the right side of the stat sheet, man.
Daryl
Tell me your best
Morcell-
player, he'll erase him.
Daryl
He'll erase
Morcell
him.
is not a stat sheet kind of guy. He is a high energy. He's a defensive guy. He's a guy that's going to be in your face like he was in this game. He got in that dude's face. Something changed with him when he put that fucking mask on too. I don't know if he's got a little bit more
broke
confidence
his
with
face, bro. Wouldn't
Yeah.
you be pissed off?
I
There
know,
was
it's
a
just-
dent in his face.
Yeah, but he's got to watch that with a foul. I mean, he fouled out in this game. You got to watch that
The
foul.
reason they were under 50 points is because Daryl Morcell erased their number 1 player, and the rest of the team followed with that energy.
Exactly right.
He erased Carr completely.
Exactly right. Well, it doesn't end here. Like this Big Ten conference, I mean, they are just loaded from top to bottom as far as talented teams. They got a game tomorrow set to take on number 14 Wisconsin. We know historically what Wisconsin's about, right? They're usually another high energy, very efficient, good passing team.
I don't like them.
I know you don't
why.
like. I know you don't
Never
like
liked them.
Do you not know why? Do you not know why, Ryan? I think you know why you don't like them. No, but listen, it's another challenge, another top 15 team that the Terps got to face against. Who's going to show up? Are they going to be this team that plays together and plays efficient basketball and shoots the ball at a high clip? Because let's face it, in the very beginning of the year, after the first 3 games, now granted, it wasn't against Big Ten tournament team, or it wasn't against Big Ten talent. It was against the smaller schools. The Terps were shooting the lights out of the gym. I don't care who you're playing against. You still got to be able to shoot the ball and put the ball in the basket. They have not been able to do that consistently
Well,
this
it's
year.
somebody else's gym. They're shooting the lights out of somebody else's gym. We can't shoot worth a shit at home. We can't win anything at home. And I think it's across the board in college basketball. There's a much higher road win this year. And I really think that it's just like you got to get past those ghosts. Like you're in this empty arena where usually 40,000 fans were like chanting your name, and you could like pump up the crowd. And like when you're in your home arena, you go, "Oh shit, this is missing." And when you're in somebody else's arena, you're like, thank God those people aren't here.
You're used to drowning it out already.
It's great. But I think they look at those draped flags over top those empty seats, and it's eating them. So they need to get the sports psychiatrist in the building and erase those goats, because we're at 4 out of the next 6 games that are gonna be at home, and you gotta win a couple of them. You can't just win road games.
Yeah.
Well, I think outside of the Michigan game too, they've also been they tend to show up against ranked opponents this year.
Well, that's the thing. They've shown up against some, and they haven't shown up against the other. Iowa absolutely destroyed them.
Well, but
Iowa
that's not true
was
either,
ranked.
though. We ran out to a almost 15-point lead, and then
That was
all of a
quickly gone.
sudden was gone.
Yeah.
What
Garza
was-
said, "I'm better than you."
What was Iowa's ranking during that game? Do you remember?
They were
Top 10.
They were right.
Yeah.
So top 10 teams were not. So the Michigan game, we lost to Michigan. They were number 7.
Yeah.
But any team that it seems like above the top 10 were able to handle.
And look, Cockburn and Garza are almost gone, but that Dickerson kid's going to be here 4 more years.
Yeah, I know.
We got to do something. You can't play. You're going to lose every game versus Michigan for the next 4 years if you don't get a monster.
They've got to get a big body in here that can actually play.
So I want to take a second. I want to get both your opinions on some other news when it comes to the Terps. So Steelers, and I know it's not Terps, but Steelers promote their QB coach and former Terps coach Matt Canada to offensive coordinator for the Steelers.
Anthony McFarland came.
He is licking his chops. This was the move I thought kind of was destined to happen when they brought Matt Canada in, then they draft Anthony McFarland. It made sense. There's obviously a lot of changes that are going to be going on in Pittsburgh with the Steelers. You've mentioned changing head coaches. I don't think that's going to happen. But, whatever. Their quarterback is obviously up for debate right now. He says he's coming back, but is it just for this last year? Who knows? Matt Canada, I mean, he is an offensive I'm not going to say a guru, but he's got a very good offensive mind. Obviously,
Jet sweeps are coming, baby.
Anthony McFarland had his best year with the Terps that year. James Conner's still a good running back, but how much does he have left in the tank? We might see Anthony McFarland be a number 2 back on this team this year.
You won't catch a bad thing about Matt Canada coming out of my mouth. The thing he did with that team in the worst year possible for us after the Jordan McNair issues was a miracle, a complete miracle that he kept the team together, that he kept that team motivated, and that we won the way we did. I mean, we were a 2-point conversion away from beating Ohio State and being in a bowl game with 2 top 15 wins on our year.
Right.
Like, it just didn't all work out.
So Joe brings up another good point. This is something I wanted to get your take on, Ryan. So there's obviously been some mass exodus lately of coaches, of players, some of which were expected. Some of these guys that just weren't getting a whole lot of playing time ended up transferring out to other schools. That's the normal realm of a season, like the offseason. That's what happens, right? But you get a guy who you and I have been high on for the last couple of years, who was your unquestioned leader on your defense in Chance Campbell. I mean, we talked about it last year during the season that I thought he would have been in the running for the Butkus Award if it was actually a full season and they were giving out those kind of awards. Chance Campbell has entered the transfer portal. I know we've got a lot of good young linebackers coming in, but what do you think the scoop is with this?
Oh, I mean, well, I don't know what the scoop is. No one seems to. I've read everyone that knows anything about the Terps, and they're all kind of wilted. There's a couple guesses. Apparently, many of the players that were put out, the prima donna type players that we were okay with losing, were actually some of his closer friends, even though this man, Chance Campbell, put in the work. Right. He was a grinder. He's been being asked out by NFL coaches since his sophomore year.
And he's a leader.
He's a leader, and he's your best player. And if you're losing your best player to anywhere but the NFL draft, there are questions to be asked. As far as the coaching, it is weird that they're all hitting at the same time, but most of them have been promoted, the ones or going to the NFL. It's not a lot of like lateral movement going on.
But my question is though, we've talked about how good this recruiting class is, and obviously these guys make these commitments based on the coaches and the philosophies of these coaches that are here, and now you've got this mass exodus. How do you think the players that have just recently committed are going to react to this? Do you see them rethink their decisions?
I don't. Well, everyone's signed, so you'd be transfer portaling at this point.
Right.
There's only 2 openings for to finish out this year's class, so our national signing day is going to be almost non-existent. We have 2 people left to commit. In fact, I'm not sure. We might only have 1 because we had the quarterback commitment who's joining us in summer, and I don't know if he counts towards those numbers or not. So we either have 1 more or 2 more. So this was the right time to make these moves because it didn't affect your recruiting class.
Don't you put that on us, Joe. Don't you put that evil on us, Joe.
If Chance goes to Penn State, I will throw up red flares and find out what the hell's wrong with his coaching staff. But I believe he will transfer out of the Big Ten. And if he's got to either go with his brother, who's playing for the Air Force Academy, or he's going to go to a tight.
I don't think you transfer to an Air Force Academy.
I'm just going to throw something out there, and this is just something that I saw today, heard today. I texted you guys about Locks being on ESPN. I don't know if either of you guys got the chance to actually see what he was talking about.
Locks is everywhere nowadays. He's on Masson a lot too.
Nobody's watching that. It's not streaming.
Paying him real good.
DirecTV owners are.
So he was on there because he is the president of the coalition for collegiate and professional African American coaches.
Yeah.
He has apparently been making a huge push over the past year
to get Bieniemy to Baltimore so he's closer to him.
Yeah, sure. That's exactly what it is. You can keep thinking that. My question to you is there a possibility with the coaches and the players leaving that has been, whether it's from Locks or the school, there's been a shift in priority? And that's why so many of these coaches, I know you said they're getting promoted, but
a shift in priority to what?
Yeah.
A shift in priority to focusing on things that are going on in the NFL versus focusing on your football team. Because obviously last year, my opinion,
you're saying like Locks is spending too much time outside of the locker room.
Maybe he's not dialed in.
I don't know. I think
How do you? I'm sorry. Let's put it this way. Chance Campbell, your top. We all agree, your top probably defensive player. Period.
Yeah.
Nothing, not one iota, according to you, has come out about why this kid is leaving.
The only thing with Chance is, and it's true to a lot of people that have left this regime, is that he wasn't a locks guy. Like he's probably the last piece of the prior regime, right? So he doesn't have any special ties to locks. Maybe there's, again, no rumors to this, I don't know, but maybe Chance in his last year of eligibility is looking for an opportunity to chase a ring. Maybe he has the opportunity to go to a bigger school, like an Ohio State, like a Clemson, like an SEC school, where he feels like he has a better shot at actually winning a title somewhere. He's already had the conversations, like Ryan said, with NFL experts and whatnot. He's had that since his sophomore year of college, right? So I think at this point he's just looking to build his resume a little bit better, and maybe he feels like he can do that personally.
And I'll feel a lot better too if he enters this transfer portal. Entering the transfer portal does not mean you're going somewhere.
Right.
It could mean you're coming back. It could also mean I put my name in the transfer portal, I don't like the options I have, and then I go to the NFL draft. So if either one of these things happens, if he ends up with a title contender, I feel better about it. If he ends up in the NFL draft, I feel completely fine about it. So there's things that we don't know yet. It feels crappy today.
So I feel like as I'll be an average to sub-average college football fan. You guys would be able to speak to this way more than I could. I feel like way more often we hear about a player going to, I don't want to call it a lower end school, but we'll call it downgrading schools.
For playing time.
Playing time. I don't remember, and I don't know, maybe it happens way more often than I think it does, of a player going to a higher level school. Like
Joe Burrow.
All the quarterbacks do it every
Joe
year.
Burrow.
Okay, but it's quarterback. Can you name a defensive player that's done for? A position player other than quarterback that's happened and worked out for?
I mean, you can name the problem children that go from low end to high end to low end to high end, but it's hard.
But that's earlier in their collegiate career, so to speak.
You have the JUCO kids every year that are making huge jumps from these.
From
low levels to
right, that's from low level to high level.
The other,
we're talking high level. You're already at this high level. You're a B player versus
the other. There aren't a ton.
I'm going to throw this out there, and I wasn't going to do this on the air, but I don't care. The other factor with this that I don't know if it's true or not. This is just me being a pessimist and me thinking outside of the box. I don't know if Locks maybe is making commitments to playing time to some of these younger kids to get them in. Meaning, like, we just had our best class ever with inside linebackers. We've got Ruben, who came in last year.
Right.
We've got
it was a 5-star before he committed to us, and it came in a 4-star.
We just got another 5-star in Terrence Lewis. We've got
4-star in Jennings
coming in, right? So if his attraction or his piece, his closing piece to get this talent inside linebacker is promising playing time, and not saying that Chance wouldn't play, but it's cutting into his playing time. And he says, you know what? I can make a lateral move and go to Boston College, but I can play every snap there and build my resume higher. Maybe that's
with your old defensive coordinator Raj there. That might happen.
That's also so. That's where I'm saying I would then start to question the coaching. You're letting one of your best defensive players go in hopes for a guy that's somewhat unproven.
It's for the betterment of the future, man. You gotta. Sometimes you got to make those kind of decisions to build the program, right?
Okay.
It's not that's the difference between the NFL and college football. You're only going to get these guys for 4 years of eligibility. Right. Like, sometimes you got to make those decisions.
Maybe 5 if it's a COVID year.
Again, this is just my speculation. This is just my opinion. I think that could have some validity.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, we have plenty of talent to not replace, because they're the leadership and the knowledge that he brought to that position is going to be hard to replace. But it's not empty. We're not scared. We lost him, and we lost a very good offensive guard. Apparently, the offensive guard was lost because he wanted to play tackle. And Locks said, we got tackles. You're here as a guard.
And again, another non-Locks guy.
Right. A non-Locks guy. Outside of that, it's coaching staff. And me and Fred were discussing, I expect our coaching staff to turn over a lot more than usual because we are the low-end school of the Power 5. And so you're a proving ground. Somebody jumps into the Power 5, they come show they can do it, and then they go to their dream job. Or they get here, they show they can't do it, and they go dominate the lower levels. You're right there in the middle. So I expect the turnover, And as far as I'm saying, it was done right because you're not going to lose a commitment from a guy right now. There's only one spot available, and I'm hoping it's Johnson from Tennessee, but I don't know if it will be.
All right.
I mean,
No rules. No boundaries. 2 topics. 30 seconds each. It's time for the 2-minute warning.
You distracted me as I was supposed to be doing my gang signs. You,
All right, man.
you're like, you got to go first.
all right, it's time for the 2-minute warning.
Some sweet visuals for that this week.
We got some more stuff coming your way. I'm already working on some things. Ryan's
Remember,
working on some things.
don't switch cameras during the 2-minute warning, Ryan.
Yeah, I just talked to them. I was like, I
don't
can't
switch-
show you what you talk.
Don't switch back to him.
All right, whenever you're ready, Ryan.
All right, let's go.
All right.
Oh, whoa! What are you doing? You rookie?
Rookie
Well, let him
move.
talk. You're
Well,
ruining it.
ahead.
I've already lost 8 seconds. The NBA and the Players Association discussing moving the All-Star game to early March. Should they stay, move, or cancel like a physical, literal activities of that weekend?
If everything continues at this point, just cancel it. Like, it's an all-star game. It's not a competitive game. This has nothing to like. Some of these guys may get bonuses, whatever. If you want to name the all-star team, go ahead. But don't play the damn thing at this point. Just shut up and let it go.
It's unnecessary. If there's any risk in doing anything with, like, it just doesn't make any sense. The All-Star game is about the fan experience, and if the fans can't be there to enjoy it, it's not fun to watch on TV. Like the NBA basketball game is there's no defense, there's no nothing, there's nothing attractive about it. No. Get rid of it.
Next question is, what question / asterisk steroid player would you put in the Hall of Fame this year?
This year,
Apparently nobody is.
yeah, nobody's kidding you. We learned that.
Whatever the first person, who you giving it to?
Probably the guy. I know there were question marks around him, but he still did a lot. The bloody sock does a lot for me. I think we mentioned it earlier. I think Kurt Schilling overall in his career just played well enough to earn it. The questions came later in his career when it came down to him being healthy and needing to get healthy. Some guys did that later in their career. They did steroids to get healthy.
They're all D-bags. Like, in my mind, I'm like trying to think of a name. I'm like, Mark McGuire, D-bag. So Sammy Sosa, D-bag.
Barry Bonds,
D-bag. Like, they're all D-bags. Like, I don't have a preference. So if I'm going to pick anybody that did steroids that should be in the Hall of Fame, I'm going local. I'm going Rafael Palmeiro. I don't care. You can point the finger and lie to everybody. I don't give a shit. Let's get Rafael Palmeiro in the Hall of Fame. I think
Rafael Palmeiro versus the bloody sock.
he had the sweetest swing ever, and he was great
Plus, he
here
looked
in
like-
Baltimore.
He looked like
I
Super
loved-
Mario, so it was great.
I loved Rafael Palmeiro. He's one of my favorite
really
players.
Just say that Rafael Palmeiro had the sweetest.
He
swing
had one of the
ever.
sweet. No, I didn't say ever. I said
Yeah.
one of the
No,
sweetest
did he
swings.
not just
He
say?
said one of the sweetest.
I did. I said
One
one
of
of the sweetest. swings.
The Ken Griffey
He said
fan
that's
is
what he
sad.
No,
You're-
he said
you're
one.
We're gonna go back to that later
You're in
on.
the minority. Go away.
I'm gonna go listen to it later. I'm pretty sure you said the sweetest swing ever.
One of the sweetest swings. Sign us the hell out of here, Scott.
All right, guys, we appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week to the show. Make sure you check us out on our website, www.birdlandbs.com. While you're there, you can check out all of our episodes. Check out the latest Shell and Tell episode as they put it out. Make sure, I know that you guys are going to be having some big guests going in in the coming weeks, so exciting
Ryan's
news there.
just rolling them in.
Just rolling them
Now I
in.
got to do it. I got commitments. Now I have to do them.
There you go.
Now you got the equipment to do it with.
Exactly. So make sure you guys go check us out there. Get yourself some Birdland BS gear, which this is the first week in a long time I am not wearing Birdland BS gear. It feels weird.
That gear's way better.
If you're just biased.
Said the biggest Terps fan ever.
Exactly. You're just biased. Make sure you also obviously go check us out, Birdland Sports and the Big Play Twitter page. Download the Big Play app. Make sure you also check us out on all of our social media pages, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. At Birdland BS is how you find us. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe while you're there. Leave some comments. Craig Zero, we're not forgetting about you, buddy.
Not at all.
I know that you brought those up. We're going to bring those up in the after hours during the last call for alcohol. Make sure you tune in for that each and every week. And also, make sure you check out the audio version of the podcast. Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Go check us out. Birdland BS is how you find us. Make sure you leave us a review while you're there. For Fred, Ryan, James, Drew, and myself, we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
should
time
ask-
for the after party.
You should ask Kyle for alcohol.
I'm being called out by the host here.
Ryan's over there sleeping.
No, it's complete bullshit. James is gonna back me up here. So our host, as a running joke, is not only the oldest man in the room, but
Jesus,
has
what a dick.
but has
He's not
hearing
the oldest.
loss.
He's not the oldest.
Whatever.
not
What was
oldest.
that unnecessary dig for?
Because the hearing loss is related to your advanced age, and so my
I take
job
back
is to
everything I
press-
said this in the beginning of this show.
My job is to
Everything.
press a button when the music stops, and the music's still fading out. And Fred's like, "Are you gonna press a button, Ryan?"
Ryan, you had your mouth open. You looked like you were sleeping over there.
Waiting for that drool to come out.
Oh, come on!
And you're
At
over
least
there,
let me fuck up.
and you're over there standing for him.
I know. I'm gonna gouge that table when I get home.
Don't do it. We put too much work into it. Don't do it.
Oh, man.
I'll just run it through your $1 million planer. It'll be fine.
Oh, man. All right, so we hit on the Terps area. There was one other thing that I did want to bring up here in the after hours was, Friday, we actually got to see like a mini Terps reunion.
Did.
As the Timberwolves took on the Hawks in the NBA. We got to see Jake Layman and the Timberwolves take on Herter and Bruno and the Hawks.
Not so much Bruno, but
Yeah, I
he
mean,
was there.
he was
In attendance.
3 minutes on the court.
Alex Lenz came back to DC
He
for
did.
us.
Yeah. Alex Lynn, now a Wizard, had an impact in his first game too. I want to say he had like 10 points and 5 boards in his first game. He looked 7'1".
He's a gamer.
big.
He's not a star in the NBA at all, but he's done his job for a long time. He's earned his money. He's done pretty well.
For sure, for sure. Jake Layman, man, he's one of those guys that's just
Underrated.
I think he's severely underrated, both him and Kevin Huerter. But I think Jake Layman's all-around game, it translates well to the NBA, and I don't think he's utilized enough, personally.
Yeah, when he goes off, he goes off, but they're not using him well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we got to talk a few of the comments that we got from
Ryan, see if you can find some good comments.
Craig Zero on
Craig Zero, you were heavily shown on that social media shout out if you missed it.
Yeah, if you
Go
missed it,
back
you have
and
to tune
see
in
the-
next week to see the social media shout out,
The
or
new
just
entry.
hit rewind after the show's over.
or we can always just have Ryan
Craig
hit it
Zero
again if we
comments and your name and the lockers. We got you going.
So there was a few questions that Craig was commenting to you and I over the week. One, he says, and this one I'm gonna defer to you. If Brady wins the Super Bowl, no one will question his legacy, even if tainted by Belichick.
I don't question his legacy. Like I said, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. And I get it. Like the Patriots were all caught up in multiple scandals and all that stuff and the cheating and all that stuff. At the end of the day, that's not Tom Brady's decision. That's a head coach. That's an organizational decision. I don't put that on Tom Brady at all. He went out there, had to throw the footballs. He had to win the games. He did his job. Tom Brady earns my respect. I just can't stand the bastard.
Two other ones from him that he commented in this week we're just going to mention, and they kind of go together. He said, we have a big problem. EDC doesn't get that passing the ball doesn't mean run it less. On that note, do you think he is too Aussie, not seeing it is going to harm Lamar this coming season? Because it seems we don't use our soldiers as we should. And then he says, when will the front office understand passing more effectively on the ball doesn't mean run less? Look at Flacco's 4,000 yards a year, 4,000 yard year. The run,
one.
4,000 yards. I was reading it wrong.
Late.
Very
The
late.
run
last year here, I think.
The run ran a lot, but the passes were more efficient and long, and we had Steve Smith Sr. and Kubiak to thank for that.
Yeah.
So your thoughts on EDC, maybe being too Aussie and thinking that it's not just that if we get this wide receiver that they're going to run the ball less.
Listen, Eric DeCosta is not an idiot. Like, he understands that this offense needs to be better. It needs to be more efficient. And I think that's kind of where he's going from here. Like, I don't think, like, all the fans out there, the unrealistic fans that expect the Ravens offense to be the Chiefs, it will never happen that way. That's not what we are built to be. That's not what we are built to be successful. I agree. This offense needs to be more efficient. It needs to be more effective through the air. And running some of the simple concepts and running some of the simple routes right now is not getting us there. That's one. The other part is they need the personnel to be able to do that. Adding a big-bodied number one receiver is going to help that. And then three, you got to put some onus on Lamar too. The difference between Lamar's 2019 MVP season to 2020 was his comfortability in the pocket. In 2019, you could see it. If you go back and watch any of his games, he would step up in the pocket, no fear of looking at his lineman or fear that the pocket was going to collapse from the inside, because he had a future Hall of Famer in Marshall Yanda in there. He had both of his bookend tackles in there, and he had a damn good left guard in Bozeman in there, and they weren't having snap issues, right? All of these things factored into Lamar's confidence in 2019, which made him more successful. 2020, he was basically running for his life almost every play. He never looked confident. He never looked comfortable. So you've really, I think, to see a big improvement, which we don't need to go from Lamar throwing from 2,700 yards to throwing for 5,000 yards. That's getting away from our identity. That's getting away from what we do good. But we do need to see improvement, and I think that starts with building the interior of that offensive line up first.
You have if you're going to ask him to pass more, you have to do that.
Yeah.
And if not, then you need to tell Lamar, when you see the hole, take it, because when you take it is when we're good. Don't hesitate. If you see the hole, just go.
Right.
You're more effective that way. It has to happen that way. Ryan, any good comments out there?
Yeah, I got one up right here. The park itself, and talking about the Orioles, is a big factor with the poor pitching. Good free agents don't want to wreck their numbers pitching at Camden Yards. Good coaches might prefer better pitching parks too.
And this is why I've said for years that in order for the Orioles to be successful on the mound, they got to draft well and they got to develop well, because that's absolutely true. Unless the Orioles overpay, which they're not going to be able to afford in a salary cap, unsalary cap league, they're going to have to draft pitching. And that's what they've been doing for these last couple of years, is they finally have gotten some guys that they're happy about. They're finally seeing some good development, because there were some guys that we drafted over the past decade that were great, but either didn't get utilized right or got burnt out or didn't get coached right at the minor league level.
That's the thing is really the area that you're talking about is literally the past 2 years. That's it, right? We're not talking the past 5 years.
Oh, no.
We're talking about
since Elias has been here.
Right. And so that's the thing, is Elias has made those adjustments, but we have drafted well, right? We drafted the Bundys. We drafted.
Haven't been able to develop them. That's the problem.
Right. We ask him to take away his adjustments. We throw him so much that he winds up throwing his arm out. Jake Arrieta, the poor utilization. Literally, I at this point, I really truly think the stories are true. That when he went to Chicago, they literally said, hey, how about you move about 1.5 inches, 2 inches this way on the mound? Let's see how you do.
And you know that cutter that you used to be real
fucking cutter.
Right, that cutter that you used to be real successful with that they told you not to throw. Hey, how about you do that?
Yeah, you mean the one that he made his debut with against the Yankees and fucking shut the Yankees down. And
what did Mariano Rivera build his entire career around?
Cutter.
That's all he had. Yeah. And he struck out everybody in the 9th inning.
Yeah. So
unreal.
A lot of good stuff. Will we get another one out there?
Yeah, there's another one up. This is a question for Fred. Basically backing up his immaturity.
Fred, this is Ryan.
Did you just see what happened?
I had a stroke.
My best friend forgot my name.
He was questioning you on your saying Queen with immaturity. Give some examples, because he hadn't seen anything and feels like he's up to date with what's going on.
So it's not an example thing, man. It's just what I see in him. Some of his behaviors, some of the things that he says on social media. I don't have anything to quote, so I can't bring it up because I didn't even know we were going to talk about Patrick Queen, to be honest with you. It's just some of the thoughts that I've had in the back of my mind. He's a very athletic guy. He's a very gifted guy, and I think he's still super raw because he barely played.
He's still learning on the field.
Yeah, he barely played at LSU. He came in at a rookie year and was thrown to the Wolves because he had no time to training camp, no time with the coaches or anything like that. So I'm not disrespecting him in any way. I just think that some of these young guys, especially young guys that come from very successful programs like LSU, he won the BCS, the championship, the year prior to coming here. They're just so used to success that they take things for granted. And I feel like there's a little bit of immaturity with him that I think Rob Ryan, to Garnett's point, and that's all I was saying, is a no-nonsense kind of guy that I think he'll hold his feet to the fire, and I think he'll learn from that.
Yeah. There was one thing I did want to bring up that we kind of had like a semi-rundown. So 2 things I'm going to touch on real quick. One, we're going to start with the sad one. Today, 1-year anniversary of us losing Kobe and Gianna and the 7 others that crashed in the helicopter in Calabasas, California.
Crazy to think it's been a year already.
Yeah.
It really has. When I heard it,
It feels like it's been a decade. Are you guys kidding me? I've been
Well,
stuck
when I
indoors.
heard it, I was like, because it happened, and then the next major thing that happened was the
COVID.
shutdown.
Yeah.
So like my mind was like, did it happen in January? I thought it happened in like March. Like,
I remember thinking it was the worst thing that was going to happen in 2020.
Yeah.
right.
This is right around the time where we started talking about like the potential of COVID.
There's
and
some
all that
shit
stuff.
going on in China.
This is when Fred said it, and I go, Fred, you're crazy. I've been through 100 fake pandemics, and nothing ever happens. And I was like,
all the nurses said
yeah,
that to me.
all of the nurses. Because we all went through Ebola, where we all had to go through 80 hours of training, and then one white guy got it, and they gave him a needle, and it was over.
SARS.
Like, so we didn't feel it, but this was real.
Yeah, so
Still real.
It's still real. I think a lot of news networks were given the reflections and things like that, and just how great he was. One thing I just got to bring up. I have it on as I'm working. I was working upstairs today, and I have had on. I think it was Get Up with Greeny, and they had Mike Wilbon on. Mike Wilbon usually doesn't do mornings. Like, he's an afternoon guy on purpose. They had him on, and he had this reflection and story that he was telling about Kobe that he said he had basically never told before. And that it was Kobe would come up to him after games because Wilbon was a huge guy of Jordan. He thought Jordan was the GOAT. Still thinks Jordan's the GOAT.
Jordan is good.
But he had a running joke with Kobe that Kobe would come up and go, I think the old man would have thought of my game today. He puts up 40 points in a game. I think the old man would have thought about that. Right? Like, just joking with him. And he said that was something between him and Kobe. And I heard this story and I was like, that's the stories that it sucks that we have to hear them after a guy dies.
Yeah.
Because he expressed about how like Kobe was doing it because he truly thought, well, Jordan came before him. Jordan was not his contemporary. Your contemporaries, you never think your contemporaries are the GOAT, right?
Mm.
It's the guys that came before you and set the path before you that you feel are the GOAT, right? Even if your careers overlap just a little bit, like Jordan's and Kobe's did, Kobe had such a respect for Jordan that he
was his idol.
He could joke with a reporter to be able to say, like, what do you think the old man would think about? Apparently, there were a few times where they actually called Jordan together, and Jordan thought it was hilarious. Jordan loved it because he loved Kobe.
Yeah.
And so it just, I think back and I reflect, and I sit here and I say this because think about how many great players are there today that there's stories like that we've never heard.
Oh, yeah. And you're going to continue to hear them over the years, and that's
Right.
going to be the great, thing about his
Well,
legacy.
it's great, but it's not great because why do we have to wait until a guy's dead to hear those things?
I don't know. It's just the way the world works. I mean,
It's spotlight.
Unfortunately, we as human beings take relationships for granted. We don't appreciate things until we don't have them, and that's
Apparently
true with-
Wilbon asked Kobe if he could share it when he was playing in his playing days, not necessarily after he retired. And Kobe was like, I don't think people would get it.
Right.
That I can joke with you like that. They'd take it the wrong way. And while he was playing, I think that's right. But right after he retired, I think that would have been a great story for everybody to hear, just hearing all that.
Good, James.
Two things. One about Kobe is apparently he had this amazing. Someone has it. It's on VHS because 97 or 96 when it happened. But this guy had a videotape of his one drill that he did to show the NBA, and most people think that's an insane workout that for that age for him to do was so impressive, and he was about to tape over it, but he didn't and saved it. So they're going to be releasing this workout
awesome.
that he did that was insane.
Great.
That's everything you've ever heard about Kobe. Is his work ethic was second to none.
Even as a young kid, yeah.
And then second, MJ one was a reporter sat down recently with MJ and was like, "Do you think your '90s team could, beat LeBron's any other teams they went to or these super teams?" It's like, yeah. He goes, how many points would you beat them by? He goes, maybe 2 or 3. He goes, 2 or 3 points. He goes, yeah. we're like in our 60s now. So he was saying that in his 60s he can beat these guys, but it wouldn't be like a big margin. It'd be like 2 or 3 points.
That's funny. That's funny. All right, so the last thing we're going to touch on before we get out of here for the night was the big-ish news. I personally was not surprised by this at all. Conor McGregor loses to Dustin Poirier. First fight in, 2 years?
Something like that.
A year and a half at
I'm
least.
sure he had a few barbells in the middle.
I'm sure.
Hey, that old guy.
Punching old men in the head.
Whiskey.
You're going to drink my whiskey if you like it?
Yeah. Did you guys see his leg and his knee after that fight?
Poirier fucked him up. Just kicked
I got
the
the
shit out of
American.
him.
He was saying I got American football in my trousers. My leg looks like an American football.
Him and Beasley had something in common. They both had broken legs.
Yeah, right. Like I personally was not surprised by the fact that he lost. I mean, you can't come in against a guy that has continued to fight after you last fought him and expect to be able to compete with him. I get you beat him last time. What made you think you just thought that you could come in and throw down with a guy that stayed active and you have not stayed active? You could be physically
To me,
fit.
he looked way too small. I don't remember him being that frail.
Did you see the video of the two of them going at it? Like, Poirier gave McGregor hot sauce, which was hilarious because I think he just shat himself afterwards.
Right.
But Poirier looked fucking ripped.
Yeah. Yeah, but McGregor doesn't look anything like he used to look, and I think he's just hanging on. He's been hanging on for way too long these last couple of fights. I think at this point it's money for him.
Is it time to call it a career?
Yes, it's been time for him to call it a career.
It's money because I might not got the. I might be throwing a little bit of figures out, but it was something like going into the fight, like the projection was like Conor could make like 15 to 20 million for this fight when Poirier would probably make like 1 or 2 million, and that's the guy that won the fight anyway.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
The problem is it's like you've had your extracurriculars, you've had your boxing, the Mayweather, and your talk with the Pacquiao, and then you had a guy like Khabib who was dominating the division. But then you had a guy like Poirier who just could not get out of that shadow, but has been fighting the guys underneath all of that. And then finally, like, you're going to get the spotlight, and he fucking stunned him. Yes, you proved that you know what, you're in the rear view. It's someone else's time.
Adios, buddy. Adios. Yeah, it's time for him to walk away. So, all right, guys,
Time for us to walk away.
Yeah, it's time for us to walk away. It's been a long show. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you check us out next week. We'll see you guys.
See you guys.
Yep.